Chapter 1185. Meh. Finally, Kiki imitated the tone of a horse and the voice of a sheep. The audience burst into laughter. However, Lin Yongjian was inspired and began to design the characters for the two. Chi-Chi is. Lin Yongjian held a pen in his hand as he spoke while taking notes. Meh horse. Kiki looked at her father and giggled. Then you are. Lin Yongjian pointed at his son and gestured for him to speak. Dejun cooperated and replied, Woof woof dog. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, It doesn't have to be woof woof dog, it can also be meow meow dog. Then it's a cat. Kiki was amused by her father and giggled nonstop. It was as if the meh she said was not a sheep but a horse. Alright, now I need you to find some extras. Lin Yongjian said, We lack a pig now. Teacher Lin had forgotten about the poultry and livestock. There's also a sheep. Poplar Fruit returned to the main topic and did not continue to tease his daughter about the meh horse and woof dog. There's also a cow and a chicken. Teacher Lin continued the topic. After speaking, Poplar Fruit realized that Dejun and Kiki were a little distracted. Dejun was habitually distracted while Kiki was still intoxicated by the topic just now and had a silly smile on her face. Lin Dejun, repeat what we lack now. What animals are we lacking? Lin Yongjian asked. Cow and pig. Dejun was the first to speak clearly, but his aura immediately plummeted. What else is there? There's also. I forgot. Kiki, think about it. Yongguo's hand shook her absent-minded daughter. Only then did Chi-Chi come back to her senses. She began to recall what Uncle Lin and her father had said just now. However, their voices were a little jumbled, and Chi-Chi's eyes were a little confused. What have you been feeding her for so long? Teacher Lin was impatient. She stood up and waved her hand as she scolded her son. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly. He didn't want to stop him, but Poplar Fruit pointed at the sheep pen to give Kiki a hint. Chicken. Dejun and Kiki actually said in unison that a sheep was a chicken. How could there be such a mistake? The audience couldn't figure it out. Poplar Fruit couldn't figure it out either. However, like the audience, he couldn't help but laugh. No, I was wrong. It's sheep. Kiki blushed and finally reacted. Chickens and sheep, pigs and cows. That's right. Teacher Lin gave one last instruction. Your mission is to find 2 boys and 2 girls. I got it. Dejun waved his hand and pointed at Poplar Fruit and his father. He said, You don't have to follow. I'll go with Kiki. Actually, Poplar Fruit and Lin Yongjian had the same idea. However, that didn't mean that you could righteously request to take away other people's daughters. At that moment, Poplar Fruit's facial expression was colorful. If Dejun was a 15 or 16-year-old child, Poplar Fruit would have found a broom to chase him away. However, Dejun wasn't even 5 yet. Poplar Fruit had nowhere to vent his anger. Looking at the strange smile on Lin Yongjian's face, Poplar Fruit felt like he had swallowed a big fly and wanted to stomp his feet. Also, Kiki, you're a girl. You're a princess. Why are you smiling so shyly? Your face is almost as red as your clothes. You can't do this. Poplar Fruit scratched his head anxiously. Poplar Fruit was about to explode. However, he suppressed his anger and nodded helplessly. He told his daughter, All right, both of you be careful. Poplar Fruit's inner conflict was completely expressed on his face. It could be said that the audience could see Poplar Fruit's mixed feelings at that moment. Poplar Fruit's depression also brought great joy to the audience. What are you laughing at? She's not your daughter. If Poplar Fruit knew, he would definitely grumble with deep resentment. Poplar Fruit couldn't bear to send his daughter off. Looking at his daughter swinging her pink bunny coat and giggling as she led the way, his glass heart shattered. Of all my precautions, who would have thought that this kid would be the most cunning? The slightly bitter Poplar Fruit had treated the 5-year-old boy as an imaginary enemy. When he started filming, the one he was most wary of was Xian. That child was honest but had rich emotions. The moment he arrived, he stuck to Kiki. Later on, it was Nuai. Nuai was handsome and had a melancholy temperament. He was especially popular with girls since he was young. Kiki had even wanted to invite Nuai to her house to play yesterday. Poplar Fruit refused to admit that it was to sleep. Hence, Poplar Fruit had raised Nuai's guard to the highest level, red alert. Who would have thought that Dejun, the shy child from the start, would actually try to kidnap his daughter? Seeing Lin Yongjian wanting to send his son out, but Dejun tugged at his father and said, "Don't go." Poplar Fruit actually had the urge to howl at the sky. Thinking about how he had instructed Kiki to take care of Dejun in the car, worried that he would be too shy to blend in, Poplar Fruit suddenly had the urge to beat himself up. Who asked you to be so nosy? How good would it be if every child was like Kong Kong? Can you stop buzzing around my daughter and harass her all the time? Poplar Fruit looked at his daughter's departing figure with hidden bitterness. That kid had grabbed his daughter's hand again. Actually, Poplar Fruit was overly concerned and thinking too much. It was just a few children. They didn't even know the boundaries between boys and girls. How could anything happen? Children also yearned for beauty. Little chubby Xian was the one who showed it the most. As long as it was food or pretty sisters, there was nothing he didn't like. Kiki was also the representative of beauty among the 5 children. She wasn't just pretty. Being pretty only took up half of the children's perception. They could acutely sense the good and evil in others. Kiki was very kind and had a gentle personality. She also knew a lot. So many children couldn't help but want to get close to her. Even the cold and aloof CEO Kong, if not for his shyness and self-importance, would also want to blend in and play with everyone. Didn't you see him sneaking glances at Kiki sometimes? Dejun's situation was even more complicated. He and Kiki were almost a year apart, but overall, Dejun wasn't much older than Kiki, not to mention his height. Compared to his father's child-rearing style, Dejun felt that Kiki was practically an angel. Not only was she naive and cute, but more importantly, she was gentle and considerate. She wouldn't speak harshly, but would teach him how to communicate with the goat step by step. How could Dejun not want to get close to a girl like this? Even the children had a kind of exclusivity at this moment. Xian would be sad because his sister was playing with other children, but Dejun was worried that his father would interfere and ruin this beautiful moment. Thus, the angel's father misunderstood. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was also sulking for a while, but later on he let it go. That's right. What was the point of arguing with a child? Chapter 1186. Poplar Fruit was gloomy for a while, but he sorted out his feelings and threw himself into the tangled discussion with Lin Yongjian. On the other side, Kiki followed Dejun out on a mission. The Vitality girl Kiki didn't like to stay there all the time. Although Yang Yanjiang was cute, she still felt that doing missions was more interesting. The little girl ran in front happily, and Dejun chased after her for a while before catching up. "Kiki, can I hold your hand?" Dejun asked tentatively, confirming that their friend status was still the same. "Okay." Kiki smiled sweetly. "Your hand is hidden in your sleeve." Dejun was overjoyed, and went up to hold Kiki's hand. Kiki was half a head taller than him, but her hands and legs were longer, so Dejun held her hand easily. "Then you can put your hand in too." Kiki giggled, finding it fun. The 2 good friends held hands, and went to look for children to act as extras. However, the Lust Plateau was full of yellow sand, and the mountains were undulating. In a village, sometimes 2 neighboring families would have to walk a few hundred meters. "I see it. I see it." Finally, they saw a few villagers in front. Kiki's eyes were sharp, and she immediately saw the children hiding between the adults' legs. Chi-Chi let go of Dejun's hand and happily ran up to him. Dejun was still in a daze and only cared about holding her hand. It was only now that he hurriedly caught up with her. "Auntie, hello." The moment she opened her mouth, the little girl was a little shy. She took a step back and went behind Brother Dejun. She put her hand on his shoulder and stuck her head out. "Hello." The villager auntie smiled and replied. Dejun's attention wasn't on the mission, but he puffed out his chest and smiled foolishly. He felt proud that Kiki relied on him. "Auntie, can we invite the little girl to perform with us?" After Kiki said the first sentence, she became bolder. She walked out from behind Brother Dajuan and pointed at my daughter, who only reached her chest. "Little sister's clothes are very cute. I think she can act as a pig," Kiki said innocently. In the children's worldview, pigs and dogs were all very cute animals. The audience found it funny because they were overthinking things. "Yes, I'm a dog, you're a horse, and then she's a pig." Dejun said with a hoarse voice. But the little sister hasn't agreed yet. Kiki waved her hand, not letting Dejun's exaggerated actions scare the little sister. Auntie, can I? Kiki asked expectantly as she twisted her hands behind her back and gently rubbed her toes on the ground. You have to ask her if you can? The villager's aunt pushed her daughter and said with a smile. These were the requirements of the production team. They had to set up some obstacles for Kiki and the others. Little sister, can you act with your older sister? Kiki put her hands on her knees and lowered her body to ask. Woo 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 woo. The little sister turned around and hugged her mother, crying. Chi-Chi immediately felt a little helpless. She stood up and scratched her head in puzzlement. This was the first time she encountered her charm failing. In the courtyard from before, Poplar Fruit happened to be interviewed by the production team. He scratched his head and smiled. No, I'm actually not very worried about them. My daughter has a very good personality. She has been very popular since she was young, whether it's children or cats and dogs. And she doesn't really know how to reject others, so I'm a little worried that she might bring back 8 out of the 4 children. Poplar Fruit laughed happily. But the reality was not like that. Kiki was in trouble. Not only did the little sister not get close to her, but she also started crying. This caused Chi-Chi to be a little confused and frustrated. It's okay, it's okay. She's too young, only 2 years old. She doesn't know anything. The villager's aunt comforted her daughter while explaining to Kiki. She won't be able to act even if you let her. Why don't you find other children? Kiki nodded, confused. She followed Big Brother Dejun and followed the path the villager's aunt had pointed out. Kiki was a little depressed, but Dejun didn't feel anything. He bounced in front of Kiki and said, Let's ignore that cowardly girl. Let's find other extras. Kiki was instantly unhappy. She stood in the same spot with a sullen face. She looked at Dejun angrily and said, Big Brother Dejun, you can't talk about the little sister like that. I'm not talking about you. Dejun was stunned and quickly waved his hand as he said, I'm not talking about me either. You said the little sister is a coward. That's not right. How can we talk bad about others behind their backs? If you're going to be like this, I won't play with you anymore. Kiki was already a little depressed just now. Now it was as if a barrel of gunpowder had been ignited. Don't think that Chi-Chi won't get angry just because she's like an obedient baby. She's just a little more optimistic usually. And if you cross her bottom line, Chi-Chi will still flip out at you. At home and in kindergarten, Kiki lived in a positive environment. Poplar Fruit and Feng Beibei would also pay attention to their words and actions in front of her. Song Jiwen would occasionally curse, but after being reprimanded by the upright Kiki a few times, he didn't dare to mess around anymore. Dejun's words just now were indeed a little overboard. Although children spoke carelessly, Kiki's anger was justified. The audience secretly nodded their heads. Sorry Kiki. I won't talk bad about others anymore. Dejun was scared speechless by Kiki. How did such a beautiful angel sister suddenly become a teacher waving a pointer? However, Kiki didn't seem to take it to heart. She had been pondering the reason why her charm was ineffective. Oh, I understand. As soon as Dejun's voice fell, Kiki suddenly became spirited. Her expression changed from sullen to carefree smile. So that's how it is. The little sister is too young. She doesn't want to leave her mama. When Kiki was young, she also wanted to be with Papa. Chi-Chi's words were said to Big Brother Dejun, whom she had just scolded with a dark expression. In truth, the little girl was overjoyed to find a friend to confide in because the knot in her heart had been untied. But her mood changed again and again, making Dejun completely confused. He was a little confused about whether Kiki was really angry or not. Little sister Kiki, then are we still good friends? Dejun asked carefully. He was a little worried. His mouth was pouting and he lowered his head. Of course. Kiki nodded and said, We are still good friends. Papa said, Who doesn't make mistakes? If you can change your mistakes, it's the greatest virtue. Kiki shook her head and said, So if you know your mistakes and can change, then you are still a good child. I forgive you. This year, the little girl listened to her father recite a lot of ancient texts. Poplar fruit would also explain to her some of the more simple ones that were suitable for her to learn. She actually used it here. This made the program crew and the audience a little surprised. What a scholarly family. Her mother was a math genius, and her father was a linguistics genius. They had already obtained a doctorate in English, and were now studying for a second doctorate in Chinese. Kiki, who grew up in such a family, was also a little genius. Although she usually didn't show it, her every movement had the temperament of a little talented girl. Occasionally, she would show her talent, which made the audience like and envy her. Chapter 1187. Dejun didn't really understand the ancient language that Chi-Chi had chanted towards the end, but he understood the first part of her sentence. He could also tell that Chi-Chi was in a pretty good mood. It seemed that even though Kiki was angry earlier, she didn't take it to heart. We're still good friends. Haha. Dejun foolishly pulled Chi-Chi's arm and laughed. The mission continued. After walking for a while, Kiki and Dejun found a new target. This time the child looked much older. She was about 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a dark red cotton-padded jacket, and her hair was braided. However, her hair wasn't long, so it was tied into cute goat horn braids. However, the family behind the new target was much bigger than before. Grandpa, Grandma, Dad, Mom, Uncle, Aunts, a grandiose group of more than 10 people stood on the slope, smiling as if they were watching a show. When Dejun saw this, he wanted to retreat. However, Kiki only had eyes for my daughter. Even though Dejun wanted to pull her away, Kiki still mustered up her courage and pulled Dejun in front of them. Hello. Kiki was a little lacking in confidence. She tried hard to make herself smile, and then clearly introduced her purpose for coming. We have to rehearse a show tonight and we need 4 children. 2 boys and 2 girls. Dejun interrupted. However, subconsciously, he was afraid of the crowd behind them. He pulled Kiki with all his strength and said, Kiki, let's go. Can she perform with us? Kiki was originally very strong, so Dejun had a hard time pulling her. However, this time, Dejun pulled Kiki's jacket and pulled Kiki's sleeves long. With the jacket being pulled, half of the little girl's shoulder was exposed. It was even strangling her neck, causing Kiki to have no choice but to take a few steps back. If she hadn't practiced Benben boxing and had a stable footing, she would have fallen. Lin Dajuan, don't pull my sleeve. Kiki pouted unhappily. She even called out his name and said, and you can't interrupt others when they're talking. It's not polite. Dejun smiled awkwardly and quickly let go of his hand. Just now, Kiki's angry look still gave him a lingering fear. Now, although Kiki wasn't as scary as before, Dejun was still subconsciously worried that he would make more mistakes and make Kiki hate him. After Kiki finished speaking, she began to reflect. She remembered that she wasn't very polite just now. If Papa was here, he would definitely scold her. Kiki was a little hesitant, but the little girl was still kind-hearted. She apologized first. Brother Dajuan, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you that. Dajuan was a little afraid of Kiki just now. He felt that she was as strict as his own father. However, at this moment, Kiki's apology suddenly made him feel a little ashamed. He was a big brother. Instead, he wasn't as sensible as his little sister. The more Dejun thought about it, the more he felt that he shouldn't have. He also lowered his head and apologized to Kiki. I'm sorry, Kiki. It's my fault. The atmosphere between the two was originally a little tense, but now that they had made such a scene, there was a kind of smile that seemed to erase the enmity. Kiki, I'll talk to her. Dejun boldly stood up. He pushed aside Kiki and walked forward. Looking at the little sister, he paused and turned to her mother and said, Auntie, can little sister come with us to act? Sure. To be able to show her face on TV, what a great thing. The villager aunts were full of smiles. They pushed and shoved my daughter, who was a little shy, in front of Kiki and the others. Great. I found one. Dejun pulled my daughter and returned in front of Kiki. After completing the task, he was in high spirits. His single eyelid eyes were brimming with pride. Big brother Dejun is awesome. Kiki praised and said, let's go finish the rest of the task together. Kiki was a little hot now. She didn't put her hands back into her sleeves, and turned into a 4-handed little angel. However, before they could take 2 steps, My daughter seemed to feel that she had been kidnapped by someone else. She suddenly shook off Dejun's hand and turned around to run back. Dejun was dumbfounded. Kiki also stared blankly at my daughter's back. She was a little confused. Why did she run away again? Aya, she doesn't want to. Dejun was thrown away. He was a little discouraged and jumped on the ground. He was a little irritated. Kiki ignored him and turned around to walk back. Kiki, listen to me. Let's go find the next one, okay? Dejun quickly grabbed Kiki's shoulder and wanted to turn her around. This action was like a kabedon. However, how could Kiki be so easily held down by his little arm? She twisted her body and got rid of him. Her posture was vigorous and strong. She was as light as her father's taiji fist. Big brother Dejun, we can't do this. My papa said that you can't give up halfway. If you do one thing and stop halfway, then the second thing will be the same. Then, you won't be able to do the same thing in the future. Kiki patiently explained. She recited the words that Poplar Fruit taught her before. You see, we didn't manage to invite the previous little sister. If we give up on this little sister, then we may never be able to complete the task that Papa gave us. Kiki said. Yes, then what should we do? Dejun began to look at his feet. He felt that this task was very difficult. These children were not as easy to talk to as he imagined. So we have to explain to her. Tell her that acting is actually very fun, Kiki said. Acting is not fun. Dejun was very honest, but he also spoiled the fun. Okay. Then I'll go talk to her. Kiki stretched out her hands from her sleeves. This way it wouldn't be so awkward. She patted her two little hands on the side of her body and turned around to walk towards my daughter, who had just run back to her mother's side. Look, the little sister came to find you again. The villager aunt took her daughter's hand and greeted her. Look, the little sister is so good to you. Hello. Kiki didn't dare to get too close for fear of scaring the little sister. She just waved at the little sister who was leaning on her mother's body from afar. Although the little sister was still very shy, she turned around and hugged her mother's thigh. However, she dared to stick her head out and look at Kiki. Her face also revealed a trace of bashful smile. Your braid is so beautiful. It looks like Neza. Kiki racked her brains to get closer to this little sister, but this needs to be done step by step. Kiki touched her hair and said, My hair is not good. It's very soft when it grows. No, sister is more beautiful, right? Nyo, don't you think so? The aunt said with a smile. The little sister responded. She nodded, and the nervous expression on her face gradually disappeared. Chapter 1188. I didn't think about it. Poplar Fruit sat in front of the black and red curtain. He shook his head with a smile and said, I really didn't expect Kiki to be so serious about things. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, Maybe it has something to do with the way we educated her at home. Bebe wouldn't let me scold her. My sister and I grew up under the stick education of our parents, so it's not wrong to listen to Bebe when it comes to education. If you do something wrong, you will reason with her, tell her why she is wrong, and tell her what she should do. Poplar Fruit's words were very popular on the internet, especially among the group of young mothers. He was praised as a model of family education. You can't just scold her on the spot. She needs to be respected. You can wait first. When she wants to, or is willing to communicate with you, then you can talk slowly. Then it will be easier for her to accept. Poplar Fruit recalled and said with a smile, I know she listened to me, but I didn't expect her to memorize what I said. Kiki's role in communicating with Dejun was a bit like Poplar Fruit's role. However, she was not as skillful as Poplar Fruit, but she was patient. Compared to Poplar Fruit, Kiki had an aura that made people want to get close to her and listen to her. Therefore, Lin Dajuan, who had been going against his father on the show, was subdued by Kiki without any resistance. Lin Yongjian couldn't figure it out. I know. I heard it from the staff. Lin Yongjian was also interviewed that night. I really don't accompany Dajuan enough. There is also a problem with the way we communicate with each other. Yanghua and I have discussed this in private. When I return, I will watch this episode seriously and think about it carefully. I want to see if there is anything that we, as fathers, have not done well enough. The interview was interspersed with the process of Kiki and Dejun completing the task of finding extras. The audience suddenly realized that something was wrong. What did Lin Yongjian say about the private communication between him and Poplar Fruit? He had to leave this matter for later and explain it to them slowly. Returning to the scene where Kiki and Dejun were doing the quest, after a few minutes of communication, Kiki finally managed to get the little girl to lower her guard. The little girl held Kiki's hand while listening to Kiki's explanation. Even Dejun, who was the most impatient, came back. He lowered his head and played with the stones with his feet, while listening attentively. Let me tell you, our performance this time is very fun. In addition to me and him, we need 4 more children. We are going to play the role of small animals. Kiki looked at the little sister's admiring eyes, and said more energetically, I am Baba Ma, he is, and woof woof. Dejun finally found a little sense of existence. He took the opportunity to get closer and began to participate in Kiki's chat. Yes, Nyonyo, what do you want to play? Kiki held the little sister's hand with her left hand, and bent down with her right hand on her knee. I know, she wants to play the role of a pig. Dejun began to interrupt again. I don't want to play the role of a pig. The little sister pouted and said, It's okay, it's okay. Kiki was afraid that she would cry, so she quickly waved her hand and said, You can also choose what you want to play. But the little sister didn't know so much. It was even more difficult for her to choose. How about you play the role of a sheep, Nyonyo? I like sheep very much. Sheep are so cute. Kiki gave her an idea. Nyonyo, how about playing the role of a sheep? The villager ant also asked. The little sister nodded. How does the sheep bleat? Nyonyo, can you demonstrate it for me? Chichi asked. Baba. The little sister bleated twice, and then lowered her head shyly. Yes, Nyonyo is also great. Kiki gave Nyonyo a thumbs up. Nyonyo looked up at Kiki and grinned. Kiki, I think her bleat is similar to your horse. Dejun habitually spoiled the fun. Nyonyo, you learned it wrong. That's how horses bleat. I'll teach you. From the crowd of onlookers just now, an old man in his 50s or 60s walked down. He grinned with a missing tooth and said, Horses should bleat like this. Bleat, 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 bleat. Needless to say, the old man must have often dealt with livestock. This skill of his was perfect. However, Kiki learned very quickly. She followed the old man a few times and almost mastered it. Even if she was a little bit worse, no one would care. Thank you, Grandpa. Kiki brought Dejun and bowed politely to the old man. Kiki dug around and took out a piece of paper from her pocket. However, it was not a secret book, but a diagram of the address that her father gave her. Auntie, look, this is where we live. In the afternoon, can you bring Nyonyo to our place to rehearse? Kiki asked. Aren't you rehearsing now? That villager auntie probably wanted to push her daughter over now. There were not many opportunities to appear on TV. Not yet. Kiki waved her hand and said, We haven't completed the mission yet. We still need to continue to look for the other 3 children, so? That's right, Chichi, let's go quickly. Dejun couldn't hold back his temper and shouted. However, his voice became softer and softer towards the end. He remembered that Chichi had said that it was impolite for him to interrupt others. Okay, then we'll see you in the afternoon. Nyonyo, say goodbye to sister. The villager auntie smiled and said. Goodbye, auntie, goodbye, Nyonyo. Kiki waved her hand and said. Don't say goodbye. Nyonyo wants to play with sister. The little sister didn't cooperate again. But this time, not only did she not run away, she seemed to want to stick to Kiki. If someone could hear the villager auntie's heart, she would definitely sigh. Nyonyo, you're finally enlightened. However, all of this depended on Kiki and Dejun's intentions. Dejun wasn't willing to do the mission with a burden. Moreover, such a little girl would definitely give Dejun a headache if she made a fuss. However, Kiki, who had a sister complex in her heart, had already walked over. She happily held the little sister's hand and said, Then how about this, Nyonyo also go with sister and brother to do the mission? Mama will follow. The little sister wanted her mother to follow and couldn't bear to let go of her mother's hand. Mama Ma can't follow. The mission is for children to complete by themselves. They can't have Mama following them. Kiki waved her hand and said, "How about Ñoño play with sister first? If Ñoño misses Mama, Kiki will take Ñoño to find Mama, okay? I have a very beautiful crown at home. I can lend it to Ñoño to wear. Ñoño will definitely become a super beautiful sheep princess." Kiki gestured. Her beautiful face at this moment had a kind of warm power, making the little sister unable to move her eyes away. She let go of her mother's hand and took a step closer to Kiki. "Then Kiki, what about you?" Dejun asked. "You're also a princess." "Yes, I'm also a princess, but I'm Princess Elsa. Princess Elsa doesn't need a crown. She has very, very powerful magic." Kiki's thoughts suddenly jumped to Frozen. Chapter 1189. He discussed the script with Lin Yongjian. Because Poplar Fruit took a step back and was willing to sacrifice his image to play the role of a traitor, the cooperation between the two went smoothly. Just now, Poplar Fruit felt that his daughter would definitely have no problem completing the task. Although he said that, watching the time gradually pass and watching the hot sun gradually rise above his head, Poplar Fruit was a little anxious. "Poplar Fruit, don't trouble yourself at noon. Eat at my place. I just went to the kitchen to take a look. The owner of the house is preparing food for us." Lin Yongjian said with a smile. Poplar Fruit nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll go find them now and see how they've completed the task. By the way, Teacher Lin." Poplar Fruit thought of something, turned back and said to Lin Yongjian, "Kiki doesn't eat spicy food, she doesn't eat mutton. If there's these, please tell the owner not to add them to her portion." This was also a strange thing. Kiki had these taboos since she was young. It was not an allergy, but a psychological effect. She didn't like them. If he managed to eat it, he would probably be depressed for the entire meal. After Poplar Fruit finished speaking, he went out to find his daughter. Under the guidance of the program crew, Poplar Fruit quickly found the two children. No, it should be a large group of children. 2 girls and a boy from the village crowded around Dejun and Chi-Chi. Although they didn't make a ruckus, it felt like their momentum was a little strong. "Hey, hello." Poplar Fruit smiled and walked over from afar. Papa. Kiki was very happy to see her father. She ran over and jumped into her father's arms. "Haha. Why did you bring so many children?" Poplar Fruit bent down and picked up his daughter. He rubbed Kiki's hair lovingly and asked, "Did you complete the task?" The other children, including Dejun, looked at Kiki with some envy. She was so happy to have such a tall, handsome, and gentle father. "Uncle Poplar Fruit, we're about to complete the task." Dejun said, "There's only one boy left. We found all of them." Kiki pointed to herself and Dejun and said with some pride, "It's hard to say." "I know. You're super." Poplar Fruit lovingly shook his daughter's hair with his hand. The weather became hot at noon. Kiki's hair was a little wet with sweat, and the small vest under the sweater was also stuck to her skin. Papa, I want to take off my coat. It's so hot." Chi-Chi was busy with her mission just now, and it was only after her father's inspection that she realized that the little girl was squinting her eyes under the sunlight, but her eyelashes were long, her skin was white, and her lips were red. She was as beautiful as ever. The only pity was that Kiki still had a little baby fat. Her cheeks were chubby, but her oval face was almost formed. Some netizens sighed with emotion. "Kiki is so beautiful now. When she grows up and reaches the age of budding, she'll lose her childishness and add some lovely smile. She'll definitely be a beauty who can bring disaster to the country and the people." Of course, at that time, Poplar Fruit would sharpen his knife to pigs and sheep, no to Kiki's suitors. Even if there were several companies, battalions, and even several reinforced regiments outside the door, Poplar Fruit would not be easy to pass. "Okay, take off your coat and give it to me." Poplar Fruit did not think that far. In the eyes of a father, a daughter would always be a baby who would never grow up. Poplar Fruit's eyes were full of love, and he smiled as he took off his daughter's coat and put it on his shoulder. "It's almost noon. Hurry up and find the last boy. Then we'll go home and eat, okay?" Poplar Fruit said with a smile. The last boy was not hard to find. In front of them was a little boy wearing a striped dark blue coat. "Look over there." Poplar Fruit called out with a smile. Kiki and Dejun immediately ran over. Poplar Fruit followed behind, and the other 3 children also skipped over. Kiki greeted them with familiarity, and Dejun skillfully asked the little boy if he wanted to join in. Poplar Fruit smiled as he watched the 2 children's performance. He did not plan to help, but Kiki and Dejun's performance did surprise Poplar Fruit. His daughter and Dejun could actually talk to adults and children they did not know. This was a lot better than before. This child was very easy to talk to. He was not as wary as the first girl, because the people behind Kiki were all friends he knew from the village. Moreover, this child was very brave. In front of Poplar Fruit, he tiptoed up to Kiki and hugged her neck. Although he was leaning to the side, he almost kissed her. "I'll endure." Poplar Fruit almost threw the coat over his shoulder, and the smile on his face froze. The little boy hugged Kiki and let go shyly, but Dejun followed suit and hugged Kiki's neck from behind. He even said loudly, "I want to hug too." "What do you mean you want to hug too? Is this something delicious? Is this something fun? If I don't hug you, I'll lose out." "Is it?" "It's true. But the one who loses out is my daughter, okay?" Right now, Chi-Chi was only wearing a thin singlet on her upper body. Poplar Fruit's heart was galloping, and he stepped on the grass and crushed it into mud. What made him unhappy and uneasy was that Dejun did not let go of him. And the other children beside him were eager to try. "I have to stop them." There were only 3 words left in Poplar Fruit's mind. He could no longer care about the program recording. Of course, Poplar Fruit did not lose his mind. He just smiled stiffly, coughed twice, and said, "Dejun, Dejun, you boys can't keep hugging my daughter like this." Dejun let go of Kiki's neck, but the little boys did not realize what they had done at all. They were trying to seduce his daughter in front of her father. Hee. Actually, he didn't use much force. Kiki returned to her father's arms and leaned on his chest, thinking that it was very fun. After confirming the rehearsal time with the 4 children, Poplar Fruit took Kiki and Dejun back. On the way back, Kiki stretched out her hand and said sweetly, "Big brother Dejun, hold my hand." Poplar Fruit's eyelids twitched as he watched the children holding hands and shaking them happily. They were having a lot of fun. He took 2 deep breaths and said in his heart, "Can't see Poplar Fruit, you can't see anything." Compared to cuddling, Yang Guo was still able to accept the level of holding hands. There were more distracting thoughts today. Poplar Fruit thought sadly, if Kiki really brought a boyfriend home in the future, what would happen to him? Perhaps, like today, he would slowly lose his bottom line, right? Poplar Fruit suddenly remembered a book he had read some time ago. There was a passage in the book that he was deeply moved by. "My feelings for your boyfriend are very complicated. I might want to kill him in the first half of the night, but I hope to drink and have a long talk with him in the second half of the night. The day you were born was your mother's day of suffering. The day you get married is your father's day of suffering." Poplar Fruit's imagination ran wild for a while. Suddenly, he slapped himself to clear his head and smiled to himself. "Poplar Fruit, you're crazy. Kiki is just playing with a boy. Why are you so paranoid when you're participating in a show?" Poplar Fruit scolded himself in his heart. Chapter 1190. Kiki, would you like to come to our house for lunch? Dajuan invited. Kiki subconsciously turned her head to look at her father. Poplar Fruit nodded with a smile and said, "We're having lunch at Dajuan's house." "Oh, you're back?" Lin Yongjian was also waiting for the 2 little ones at the door. When he saw them coming from afar, he greeted them and said with a smile, "Have you finished your task?" "Finished." For some reason, when he saw his father, Dajuan's face paled. This child was not the type who liked to smile like Kiki, and now he looked even more depressed. Back in the house, there was a cool fan blowing. Poplar Fruit was worried that Kiki would catch a cold in the wind, so he let Kiki put on her coat again, but did not zip it up. "Papa, what are we eating for lunch? Are you going to make it?" Kiki climbed onto her father, who was sitting on the sofa, and knelt on Poplar Fruit's thigh. Poplar Fruit smiled and pinched his daughter's delicate little nose, and asked, "Do you like eating Dad's food that much?" Kiki giggled and said, "I like it. Papa's food is the best in the world. But today we're eating the food prepared by the master of Brother Dajuan's house." Poplar Fruit imitated his daughter's pouting mouth and said, Dad will cook for you when we get home, okay? Yes, yes. Kiki reached out to pinch her father's mouth and said with a smile. Papa's mouth is like a duckling. Kiki is usually like this. Poplar Fruit laughed and exposed the little girl, but Kiki shyly covered her mouth. Lin Dajuan, who was washing his hands and face with his father outside, came back a little later and said happily, There's mutton for lunch. I'm going to see it with my father. This was good news for Dajun, who had been talking about killing and eating sheep for the whole day. However, it was not so good for Kiki. The little girl who had been happily welcoming them was stunned. Her mouth was agape as if she had thought of something. Her face was full of disbelief. Her eyes slowly turned red, and with a sudden flick of her hair, she turned her head and burrowed into Poplar Fruit's embrace. Yang Guo was caught off guard by this unforeseen event. He still hasn't reacted. But when Chi-Chi threw herself at him just now, she already looked like she was about to cry. The more Kiki thought about it, the sadder she felt. Her shoulders trembled, and a muffled cry came out. Poplar Fruit quickly comforted his daughter. What's wrong with her? Dajun scratched his head and asked. Kiki doesn't eat mutton, so don't bring it up. Lin Yongjian lifted the curtains and walked over from behind. He said angrily, Kiki, don't worry. Uncle specially asked Master to make you a bowl of clear soup noodles. There's no mutton. Kiki squeezed into her father's embrace and shook her head vigorously. She refused to lift her head, and only complained to her father sullenly. It's all Brother Dajun's fault. He kept saying that he wanted to kill the sheep. Now the slow sheep have been killed. Boo-boo-hoo. She would not stop others from eating mutton just because she did not want to eat it. But when she thought of the sheep that she had played so happily with in the morning, and in the blink of an eye, they had become hot mutton on the table, Kiki felt her heart ache. It was so painful that she could not breathe. No, of course not. Poplar Fruit gently held his daughter's arm and comforted her gently. This mutton is not the same as the sheep that played with Kiki just now. Dad promises you. The animals that she played with and had feelings for were very different from those domestic animals. The ones that Kiki missed were the sheep that were obedient in the morning. Poplar Fruit winked at Lin Yongjian. Lin Yongjian nodded knowingly and said, Yes, Kiki, your dad is right. Uncle also promises you that he bought it at the market. Dajun seemed to feel that he had done something wrong. He hid to one side, lowered his head, and looked at his toes unhappily. Really? Kiki raised her head and stopped crying. She blinked her big, pitiful eyes and asked. Yes. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki to the sheep pen outside to take a look. He pointed at the sheep and said, Look, none of them are missing, right? Yang Guo smiled, but in his heart, he was sweating profusely. He was betting on the fact that he didn't see any signs of the sheep being slaughtered. In the short amount of time that he went out, it was impossible for him to finish off the sheep so quickly. Kiki looked carefully, and her cloudy face turned bright. She happily pointed at the sheep pen and said, This is a slow sheep. This is... Although his daughter was nagging, Poplar Fruit breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that his daughter was soft-hearted. If she really saw this tragedy, she would probably be depressed for a long time. The audience had different opinions about this scene. Some people felt disappointed and didn't like Kiki's temper of making a mountain out of a molehill. There were even some people who were radical enough to ask if Chi-Chi had become a real princess, after calling her princess all the time. This public opinion more or less affected Kiki's image. Some people even mistakenly thought that Kiki was too pretentious, and was a self-centered child. But was Kiki really like that? Of course not. But Poplar Fruit didn't intend to explain. It wasn't that he didn't care, but he knew that no one could be liked by everyone. 100 people would have 100 Hamlets. How tiring it was to live in other people's thoughts. Kiki only needed to be herself, and only needed to be grateful to those fans who had been supporting her. Fortunately, most people were able to analyze calmly. They saw the kind side of Kiki in this conflict. There was a netizen's analysis that received countless likes and reposts from many internet celebrities. It's undeniable that Kiki's character is not mature enough. She likes to be spoiled with her father, likes to talk about her father, and likes to be immersed in all kinds of fairy tales and beautiful stories. Sometimes being too kind is not necessarily a good thing. But this is very real, and also very normal. She's very smart, very cute, and very hardworking. But don't forget, Kiki is only a 4-year-old child. She's the second youngest among the 5 children. We can't measure a child with the eyes of an adult, and we can't strictly ask a child to control their emotions like an adult. They cry, throw tantrums, and have small temper tantrums. This is a problem that occurs in every child's growth process. If Kiki had been perfect from the beginning to the end, then I definitely wouldn't have liked her. Because that's not a saint, but a hypocritical show on the show. It's precisely because of these small conflicts and small personalities that occasionally erupt. It's precisely because of these imperfections that I saw the true side of a child. It allowed me to slowly understand her and fall in love with her. What's more fascinating than watching a cute and kind girl slowly grow up from imperfections to become more and more outstanding? Chapter 1191. Just now, Dejun said that there was mutton, but in fact, when Poplar Fruit and Kiki returned to the cave, they only saw clear cold noodles on the dining table. There wasn't a single piece of mutton on it. Lin Yongjian came back with a plate of side dishes and smiled. "You're back? Come and have lunch." What was going on? Poplar Fruit could actually guess. The audience in front of the TV could also see it clearly. It turned out that in order to take care of Kiki's emotions, he ran to the kitchen and took out the mutton from the bowl. The audience expressed that they were touched. Lin Yongjian was this season's 5 fathers. Everyone felt that he was the most hard-working but the least capable father. There were even netizens who felt that Lin Yongjian wouldn't be a father. But at this moment, his thoughtfulness made the audience see him in a different light. However, Dejun sat silently by the side with his head lowered. He wasn't in the mood to eat. He had been yearning to eat a mouthful of mutton, but now his dream was shattered. How could he be happy? "Teacher Lin, I think you should serve the mutton." Poplar Fruit shook his head and persuaded. "You can't ruin everyone's lunch just because Kiki doesn't want to eat. How can everyone eat just the noodles?" Poplar Fruit's words made Kiki look at her father in surprise. It was mainly because Dejun wanted to eat meat. He looked at the noodles without any intention of moving his chopsticks. Dejun's mouth was also pouting. He was in a bad mood. He didn't even want to look at Kiki. "Why can't we eat? Isn't there still food here?" Lin Yongjian waved his hand and said, "I want to eat meat." Dejun couldn't help but shout out, "What meat do you want to eat? It's you who keeps saying that you want to eat mutton. That's why your sister cried." Lin Yongjian couldn't stand his son talking back to him. He slammed his chopsticks on the table and said angrily, "I said you're not allowed to eat, so you're not allowed to eat." At this moment, not to mention Dejun, even Kiki was so scared that she shrank into her father's arms. She looked at Uncle Lin timidly, feeling terrified. "Teacher Lin, why are you throwing a tantrum at the child?" Poplar Fruit quickly tried to stop the fight. "The child wants to eat some meat. That's not a bad thing. Don't say any more. Even if you don't want to eat, I do." As he spoke, Poplar Fruit patted his daughter's hand and prepared to go to the kitchen to bring the mutton back. However, Kiki pulled him back and looked at her father with pitiful eyes. She pouted and said nervously, "Papa, can we not eat mutton?" "Little Yang, listen, even the child is unwilling. What are you doing? Kiki will be sad again." Lin Yongjian also stopped him. "Dajuan is the elder brother. He has to set an example. If his sister doesn't want to eat, you have to take care of her. Lin Dajuan, can you hear me?" Dejun pursed his lips and turned his head away, ignoring his father. When Lin Yongjian saw this, he almost lost his temper again. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit timely interrupted him. "Teacher Lin, this matter shouldn't be settled like this. Wait a moment." "Kiki." Poplar Fruit took his daughter's small hands and put them in his palm. He knew that his daughter was still a little sensitive to the word mutton after experiencing emotional turmoil. "Listen to Papa. If it were other children, they might have made a fuss at this moment." "I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen." However, Kiki was fine. After her emotions stabilized, she was still willing to listen to her father. "Father taught you a sentence before, do what you don't want to do. What's the next sentence?" Yanghua asked softly. Don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. Kiki lowered her small head. She instantly understood what her father meant, but she still felt a little uncomfortable. What does it mean? Poplar Fruit asked. Isn't this question too difficult for a child? Lin Yongjian couldn't watch any longer. He said what the audience was thinking. However, they underestimated Kiki's memory. The little girl pouted slightly and muttered, If you don't like it, don't force it on others. Yes. Poplar Fruit laughed. Think about it. Let's say that I don't like Barbie dolls and Pleasant Goat, and then I force you to not like Barbie dolls and Pleasant Goat. Is this the right way to do it? No. Kiki shook her head. She began to raise her head to look at her father, although her expression was still a little unhappy. Then let's look back at today's matter. You don't want to eat mutton, so you asked everyone to accompany you and not eat mutton. Kiki, do you think this is the right way to do it? Poplar Fruit asked. Kiki shook her head again. This time she didn't speak. Although she felt that what her father said was right, Kiki was still unhappy in her heart. Not everyone was willing to be a saint. Everyone hoped that they were the center of the world. Everyone revolved around their own will. What's more, a child whose outlook on life and the world had not been completely shaped. If it was just persuasion, it wouldn't be able to achieve Poplar Fruit's expectations. He had to let the little girl voluntarily take a step back. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, All right, let's not talk about principles. Kiki, you and Big Brother Dejun are good friends, right? Yes. Kiki nodded. Then her eyes met Dejun's for a moment. Dejun lowered his head again. Between good friends, shouldn't we understand and help each other? Poplar Fruit asked. Lin Yongjian didn't say anything from the beginning. He carefully watched the way Poplar Fruit and Kiki communicated. Yes. Kiki nodded a little weakly. The little girl's face was red from the heat, and her mouth was slightly pouted. She looked pitiful and cute. If that's the case, then let's be more tolerant. Don't make good friends unhappy, okay? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Look, Big Brother Dejun isn't eating well, and is in a bad mood. He definitely won't have the energy to play with Kiki in the afternoon. No, I should be the one giving in to little sister Kiki. Dejun suddenly raised his head. His gloominess was swept away. He grabbed the chopsticks with his right hand and pulled up the noodles. Then he giggled ambiguously and said, Kiki, look, I can eat. Lin Yongjian was shocked. It was really the first time he saw such a sensible side of his stubborn son. Kiki was also surprised. Because Dejun suddenly showed a tolerant attitude, Kiki, who was still conflicted about whether to listen to her father, didn't know how to respond. Her two hands unconsciously grabbed her father's fingers. She even raised her head to look at her father, wanting him to give her some ideas. Poplar Fruit looked at his daughter with a smile. His eyes were full of encouragement, but he didn't say a word of guidance. He let her think and make a choice for herself. Papa, then you bring the mutton over to Big Brother Dejun. Kiki got the power of the heart from her father. She jumped down and returned to her seat. She giggled with Dejun, but said in a relaxed and happy manner, We're good friends. Good friends should think of each other. Chapter 1192. Kiki, what do you want to wear? At noon, after waking up, there was a call from Poplar Fruit's cave. Hee 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 hee. A furry little head popped out of the quilt, and her iconic big eyes looked at her father with an unconcealable smile. The little girl was wearing pajamas to sleep, but in order to change her clothes, she took off all her clothes. Of course, she still had underwear. Don't come out. You are a little princess, so you have to be reserved. You can't let others see you naked. Poplar Fruit looked back at his daughter and said with a smile. This time, he did not cover the camera, but wrapped the little girl in the quilt. What do you want to wear? That. A white and tender arm came out, and with Kiki's sight, pointed to her father. That won't do, the pants are too short. Poplar Fruit picked up a pair of denim shorts that were only half the length of his palm, shook his head and said, Ugh. Chi-Chi pouted her lips coquettishly and said, You're the one who told me to say it. I want to wear parent-child clothes with Papa. Are you really going to wear it? Poplar Fruit asked. Aren't you afraid that the afternoon sun will burn your calves like roasted chicken legs? Of course, he was also teasing his daughter. When Kiki said that she would wear parent-child clothes with him, Poplar Fruit was a little tempted. Well, I won't scare you. Poplar Fruit saw that his daughter was a little scared, and smiled proudly. In the afternoon, we will all be at Uncle Lin's house. Then it's decided. Let's change to this in the afternoon. Although it was parent-child clothes, in fact it was just a panda t-shirt of the same style, and Kiki also had a sky blue zipper shirt. On one hand, it was for the sun, and on the other hand, she was worried that it would be cold in the evening. The pants were different. Kiki wore denim shorts with fringes, and Poplar Fruit wore denim shorts that just reached his knees, which could be regarded as a similar parent-child outfit. However, when she actually appeared, the audience was stunned. Perhaps it was because the production team had deliberately edited a segment that was quite similar to a model's appearance. Some of them were even drooling. There was no other way. These two pairs of long legs were too eye-catching. Although Kiki was still small, almost 1.2 meters tall, a little shorter than Kong Kong, her legs were very long, definitely more than half a meter. Under the denim shorts with fringes, the two thin but white slender pencil legs made people forget that Kiki in the front left the deepest impression. Cute and beautiful. Poplar Fruit was also not ordinary. Although only a part of his calf was exposed, his model-like figure was destined to be a beautiful scenery. Looking at his long legs, a female audience member sighed and said, "Poplar Fruit, it's a waste for you to wear pants." Well, putting aside these comments about long legs, the audience still saw something different. For the past 2 days, Kiki, who always appeared in skirts, actually had such a youthful and energetic side. Poplar Fruit didn't need to be mentioned. In front of his daughter, this fellow made people forget that he was only 27 or 28 years old, in the prime of his youth. In Lin Yongjian's house, the 4 friends that Kiki and Dajuan had painstakingly found this morning finally gathered. Under the guidance of the veteran actor Lin Yongjian, everyone started rehearsing. After we go on stage, let's introduce ourselves first, okay? Of course, the small segment was directed by the assistant director Poplar Fruit. Okay. Kiki and Dajuan were still supportive, but the other 4 children were a little shy. Awesome, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Dajuan, why don't you stand at the back of the line, so that you and Kiki can lead the younger siblings with one at the front and one at the back? No, I want to stand with Kiki. Dajuan didn't cooperate, he was still holding Kiki's hand. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit, who had calmed down in the afternoon, wasn't angry. Whatever the director asks you to do, you should do it. Lin Yongjian's temper towards his son really couldn't be changed in a short period of time. Teacher Lin, it's okay, standing doesn't affect anything. Poplar Fruit didn't want the father and son to quarrel over small issues. He smiled and stopped them. Then let's start now, okay? Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed at Kiki, letting the eager little girl start first. What are you? I'm Kiki. When Kiki opened her mouth, Poplar Fruit was stunned. Ooft, I'm not asking you to introduce yourself. You want to tell the audience. What is your role? Poplar Fruit laughed. I'm a horse. The little girl was now learning the sound of a horse so vividly that Poplar Fruit applauded her. What about you? Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed his right hand at Dajuan, who was standing beside Kiki. Dajun pulled Chi-Chi's hand and giggled. I'm Woof Woof. Next, what about you? Poplar Fruit continued to ask. Maybe it was Poplar Fruit's spring wind and rain smile that made them not afraid. Or maybe it was Kiki and Dajuan who led them. The few villagers bravely introduced themselves. There were also some who didn't do well, but after 2 rounds of guidance, they were able to cooperate well. Lin Yongjian wasn't as optimistic as Yanghua. He was worried that these children would be so nervous that they wouldn't be able to speak once they went on stage. After acting for more than 10 years, this was the first time that he had children as the main characters in a play. Teacher Lin. Poplar Fruit woke Lin Yongjian up and smiled. It's your turn to teach the children how to sing. Children, everyone stand up and start singing. Hearing Poplar Fruit's instructions, the few children stood up. Poplar Fruit was most satisfied with Kiki's performance, because the little girl was the first to stand up, and she looked very happy. This kind of dedication was great. Okay. Lin Yongjian perked up and began to sing. In the first month, it's the spring, just in time to catch the pigs and sheep out of the house. As soon as the song came out, the children stared intently. Of course, this didn't include Dajuan. His eyes rolled around, looking at the expressions of the other children, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He was quite proud of his father. Pigs, sheep, where are they sent to our relatives by Alu? Needless to say, Teacher Lin's singing of this kind of red song had a special flavor. Although Poplar Fruit remembered that this song was sung by a female singer, Teacher Lin could still sing this kind of mellow tune. It's so good, isn't it? Poplar Fruit smiled and clapped. Yes. The children also clapped hard, making Lin Yongjian's tense face smile a little. According to Poplar Fruit and Lin Yongjian's plan in the morning, the children would sing a few lines of this song, and then Lin Yongjian would sing the rest. Why didn't they let Poplar Fruit sing? Chapter 1193. That's right. Why didn't they want Poplar Fruit to sing? If the audience went to the toilet and did not see the next scene, they would have countless questions in their hearts. However, those who saw it would say that it was the best choice. Come, let's sing together. Poplar Fruit, who was closest to the children, naturally took over the task of singing. He waved his arms like a conductor. As he waved, he smiled at Kiki. Kiki also learned from her father happily, waving her arms and singing. Pigs, sheep, send them to where? As soon as Poplar Fruit's singing came out, whether it was Lin Yongjian or the audience sitting in front of the TV, they were all stunned. The audience even laughed until tears came out because of the parody subtitles made by the program team. It was not that the singing was bad, but Poplar Fruit's singing was completely different from Lin Yongjian's. They had never seen anyone sing so out of tune. However, Poplar Fruit did not feel this. The children seemed to feel it, but under the lead of Kiki, who believed in her father, they all learned Poplar Fruit's tune and sang. Wait a minute, Poplar Fruit, you're singing wrong. Lin Yongjian quickly interrupted, and let Poplar Fruit learn from him first. Pigs, sheep, where are you sending them to? Pigs, sheep, send them to where? He could sing wrong even if he sang along. The audience could not laugh anymore. It turned out that Poplar Fruit, who had always appeared in the public eye as a perfect man and a perfect father, had such a tone-deaf side. His pronunciation was very accurate, but the tune was 108,000 miles off. If it were not for Poplar Fruit's serious expression and focus on learning from him, Lin Yongjian would have thought that Poplar Fruit was playing with him. At this time, the children were all sprawled on the chairs. Chi-Chi was the same, and Dejun was like a devil incarnate. He climbed onto the big bed that was covered with a red carpet and wriggled around, wanting to play hide-and-seek with Chi-Chi. This won't do, Brother Dejun. We have to rehearse. Kiki's unwillingness to cooperate made Dejun return to the sofa. Lin Yongjian saw all of this, but he was training Poplar Fruit enthusiastically, and did not have the time to care about him. Over at Yonggua's side, the audience was laughing so hard that they were on their knees. That tone of his, from what they heard to what he sang, was always as wide as the Grand Canyon of Colorado. They really didn't know how he did it. Moreover, the audience could not help but laugh when they saw Poplar Fruit's fruit. Forget it. You don't have to sing. I will teach. Lin Yongjian gave up in the end. It was not that he was impatient, but Poplar Fruit was really a doe in the singing world. He could not be helped. In fact, Poplar Fruit also had some self-awareness. Fang Beibei often laughed at his singing. Therefore, he willingly retreated behind Lin Yongjian. Well, everyone continued to rehearse. You all have to listen to Uncle Lin. Poplar Fruit smiled and raised his hands, saying, Stand up and practice. Kiki, 2 other girls, and a boy were more obedient. They stood up early, but Dejun and another boy were more naughty. They did not move their butts when they called for the first time. Lin Dejun, stand up. Lin Yongjian said. At this time his tone was faintly dissatisfied. Stand up. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. At this time the last boy stood up. Only Dejun was left. In fact, he also wanted to stand up. However, because his whole body was almost sunk into the sofa just now, his movements were a little slower. Lin Dejun, you have to set an example. Stand up. Lin Yongjian's voice became stern. Kiki was a little confused. The little girl's smile became a little doubtful and fearful. She turned around and looked at her good friends. Good, good. It's okay. You all did well. Stand up. Poplar Fruit quickly joined the scene. He praised them with a thumbs up. However, Lin Yongjian and Dejun's confrontation had already formed. Especially Dejun. He was the kind of person who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. The more Lin Yongjian said this, the more conflicted he felt. Dejun did not care what his father said. He played with his friends beside him. He even waved his hands and twisted as if he was possessed. Hee. The boy beside him also copied him. Kiki thought it was fun and laughed as she joined in the dance. Kiki, you can't do this. Uncle Lin is talking. You guys are being impolite. Poplar Fruit quickly started to restrain his daughter. Kiki heard her father's words. She stuck out her tongue and did not dare to do it again. However, Dejun did not give up and made a fuss. He even led the other child who was also a little restless. This time, Lin Yongjian could not hold it in anymore. He shouted sternly, Lin Dejun, if you continue to be like this, you will go out and be grounded. Let me tell you, we will perform tonight. You don't want to perform, right? If you don't want to perform, then don't perform. Don't make trouble here. Suddenly, the children were as silent as cicadas in winter. Other than Dejun, who tilted his head and did not want to look at his father. The other children looked at the stern-looking Lin Yongjian in fear. Kiki blinked her eyes and opened her little mouth in surprise. She looked at Lin Yongjian and Dejun with a little worry. She was in the middle of the 2 barrels of gunpowder. Instead of fear, she was puzzled and worried. She was puzzled as to why Uncle Lin was so angry. She was used to Poplar Fruit's good temper. She was worried that her good friend would really be punished by his father. Poplar Fruit was also worried that Dejun would cry, but he did not. This child was prideful and did not want to cry in front of so many children. However, his temper was even more stubborn. He immediately kicked his legs and shouted angrily, "What are you doing? This is not called making trouble." Kiki was stunned. She had never talked back to her father like Dejun did. Lin Yongjian immediately became angry and began to scold Dejun. However, Dejun was like a dead pig that was not afraid of being scalded. He argued with his father. You are the oldest. Your sister is younger than you. Everyone else is standing. Why are you sitting? Kiki tried to pull up Dejun, who had angrily sat down, and even waved her hand shyly at Uncle Lin. Although she was also a little scared, the little girl wanted to use her small body to stop the fight. Dejun stood up, but he was not convinced. He felt that he had lost face by arguing with his father in front of so many children. He shouted, "Don't listen to him." It was getting more and more intense. Poplar Fruit wondered if he should say a few words. Although it was Lin Yongjian who was scolding his son, Poplar Fruit felt that it was not appropriate for him to speak. Why didn't you listen to me? Lin Yongjian saw that his son was being so insensible and was angry. We rehearsed. This is a very serious matter. Are you the devil? Dejun retorted. This sentence was very overboard for a son like him. Poplar Fruit felt that the excuse of being young could not cover up his mistake. I am your father. Lin Yongjian shouted angrily. Oh. Dejun did not know what to say. Dejun, let's calm down first, okay? Poplar Fruit still joined in. He squatted down, pressed on Dejun's shoulder and said, No matter who is right and who is wrong, we can't talk to Dad like this, right? The irritation in Lin Yongjian's heart had already exploded when his son said, Are you the devil? He felt like his head was going to explode. He waved his hand and said, Xiaoyang, you rehearse with them. After that, he walked out angrily. Chapter 1194. Lin Yongjian threw open the curtain and left. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a long time. When he came back to his senses, he saw that Dejun was also looking at the direction his father left in a daze. It means that this child has a good heart. Poplar Fruit secretly said in his heart. But perhaps because he felt Poplar Fruit's gaze, Dejun turned his head and looked in another direction. He still cared about his face. Brother Dejun, get up. My papa will take us to practice. Kiki pulled her little friend. There was no time for rehearsal now. Poplar Fruit couldn't let the situation between father and son continue. Otherwise, even if they rehearsed well, without Lin Yongjian, tonight's party would be in vain. He clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. He smiled and said, "Well, children, sit down first. Kiki, sit down too." Several villagers who were silent like cicadas in winter quickly sat down. Kiki received her father's order and obediently sat beside her good friend, Brother Dejun. "Before we continue rehearsing, let's chat for a while, okay?" Poplar Fruit smiled, but his eyes looked at Dejun and said, "Dejun, okay?" Dejun was not in a good mood and nodded reluctantly. "Everyone should know what I'm going to say." Yonghua smiled faintly and deliberately looked at Chi-Chi. The little girl felt the heavy atmosphere at this time and sat upright. However, from time to time, she would raise Chi Bang's little head and sneak a peek. Thus, her eyes met with her father's and she quickly sat upright. Poplar Fruit was happy in his heart, but he didn't stop talking. "But I don't want to criticize Dejun. Just now, Uncle saw that Dejun's father was indeed a little anxious, and then caused a conflict. So I think in this matter, Dejun's father is indeed responsible." Dejun looked at Poplar Fruit in surprise. "Later, I'll talk to Dejun's father. He's an adult now, so he'll definitely be able to recognize his own shortcomings." Poplar Fruit saw that Dejun's mood seemed to have improved a little. He continued in a gentler voice, "Then Dejun, do you know why your father is so anxious about you?" Dejun lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. Poplar Fruit was about to speak on his behalf when Dejun suddenly whispered, "Because he loves me." Poplar Fruit opened his mouth. This was indeed the answer he wanted to express in his heart, but he did not expect Dejun to say it out loud. This child was actually quite sensible. Poplar Fruit now had a whole new level of respect for him. Yeah, all parents in the world are the same. If your father scolded you, or even taught you a lesson, Poplar Fruit didn't use the word beat. In fact, they all love you in their hearts. They are doing this for your own good. Kiki, don't you think so? Yes. Kiki nodded obediently. Of course, the way your father loves you is a little inappropriate. If he's too anxious, it will cause the opposite effect. Dejun, you don't want your father to be like this, right? Poplar Fruit asked. Dejun nodded and didn't say anything. Although he didn't say anything, Dejun was indeed not like before. He was like an angry bird that was about to explode at any time. But let's get back to the topic. Poplar Fruit struck while the iron was hot. Just now your father ran out like that. Did you do something wrong, Dejun? Dejun lowered his head and didn't say anything. You talked back to your father. When he was scolding you, not only did you not listen to your father, you made him even angrier, right? Poplar Fruit didn't wait for Dejun to answer. Instead, he jumped away from him. Kiki, tell me, is it wrong to talk back to your father? Kiki nodded gently and said, yes. Then why shouldn't you? Poplar Fruit wanted to explain the reason. Because Papa is Papa. Kiki said an inexplicable but correct answer after careful consideration. Poplar Fruit snapped his fingers and gathered the children's attention again. He smiled and said, yes, your father is an elder. In China, we pay attention to respecting the old and loving the young. We have to respect our elders. Of course, I don't mean that we shouldn't talk back when we meet bad people. What I mean is that we should respect the elders who are good to you and care about you. If you don't know how to respect your elders, they will be very sad. Just like Dejun's father just now. He loved Dejun so much, but when he found out that Dejun didn't love him, he left sadly. Poplar Fruit spread his hands. When he said that, his tone wasn't very serious. It sounded like he was talking to Kiki about an insignificant matter. But these words in Dejun's ears were exceptionally harsh. I love him. I love my father. Dejun retorted loudly. In fact, Lin Yongjian didn't go far at the door. He heard every word his son said. The camera was pointed at his face. The audience couldn't help but feel a little moved. This ugly man was wiping the tears from the corner of his eyes. He didn't continue to listen. Instead, he walked to the other corner of the yard, sat on the millstone and sighed. Just now, his mood might have been gloomy, but now he was actually a little annoyed. Perhaps, I was really like what Poplar Fruit said. I was a little anxious in educating my son, Lin Yongjian gloomily said to the camera. In the room, under Poplar Fruit's systematic education, Dejun was finally a little enlightened. He stood up and wanted to go outside. Dejun, where are you going? Poplar Fruit pulled him and asked. Kiki also stood up and leaned on her father's shoulder. She looked at her little friend with a face full of worry. I'm going to find my father. Dejun lowered his head and said. You're going to apologize to your father, right? Poplar Fruit smiled in relief, looked at him and nodded. He continued. Dejun, do you remember what Uncle said when we started chatting? Dejun stared blankly at Poplar Fruit. He didn't understand. I remember, Papa said that Uncle Lin was also wrong. Kiki replied. Yes, you already know your mistake, but your father hasn't. Poplar Fruit said. Dejun, you also hope that your father will be more patient with you in the future, right? Dejun raised his head and nodded. So later, I'll go talk to your father. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Everyone needs to constantly grow from mistakes. Your father is the same. He and I are both first-time fathers. We also need to learn from each other. Then don't scold him. Dejun pouted and said. Of course Uncle won't scold him. Poplar Fruit laughed and said. But Uncle hopes that later, you can also apologize to your father, so that we can understand each other, okay? Lin Dejun nodded. Okay. But after I go, I think you can continue to rehearse here. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Kiki, did you just learn how Uncle Lin sang? Yes. Kiki nodded, but anxiously said. Papa, won't you teach us? Dad is going to talk to Uncle Lin, so you need to take your brothers and sisters to rehearse. Can you do it? Poplar Fruit gently asked. This was a big challenge for Kiki. Then okay. Kiki didn't find it difficult and nodded. Dejun. Poplar Fruit finally explained to Dejun and said, actually, if you apologize too much, it will become insincere. Dejun looked at Poplar Fruit with some puzzlement. With his little brain, which was still a few months away from 5 years old, he couldn't understand. What your father wants to see the most is not your apology, but your actions to prove that you're trying to correct your mistakes. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. So, when your father comes back, can you let him see that you're rehearsing hard? I think he will be very happy to see this. Dejun let Poplar Fruit hold his hand and nodded vigorously. Chapter 1195. Poplar Fruit went out of the room. He was not in a hurry to find Lin Yongjian. Like Lin Yongjian, he eavesdropped at the door for a while. When he heard Kiki singing with a few children, he held back his laughter and walked away. Lin Dajuan put in a lot of effort to rehearse. The other children might have been frightened just now, so they practiced very diligently. Kiki sang well, but Poplar Fruit did not care if she sang well or not. After all, they were all children. No one would be too harsh on them. The scene of him and Lin Yongjian chatting privately was not added in the end, because the content of the conversation overlapped with the scene in the room. But the ending was good. After returning to the room, Lin Yongjian and his son talked. Everyone saw Lin Yongjian admit his mistake and Dejun correct himself. They also saw the gratified smile on Lin Yongjian's face. In the beginning there was an interview video. When Lin Yongjian said that he and Poplar Fruit discussed the way to educate children, he was actually referring to this. Near the evening, the children's rehearsal came to an end. Poplar Fruit asked them to take a break, especially the other 4 extras. If they wanted to continue playing, they could stay. They could also go back to eat and change clothes. I'll take you up to see. You can go up to the roof from here, a villager said. And so Chi-Chi and Dejun, who had completely recovered their spirits, held hands as they climbed up a narrow flight of stairs that led to a small breakthrough. Poplar Fruit was worried that they would fall, so he followed behind them. Indeed, they could go up to the roof. And the higher they stood, the wider their field of vision. They could see the ups and downs of the mountains, the sparse green plants, and the rising smoke. Their mood suddenly became much better. After playing around, Poplar Fruit held his daughter on top of his head and made her taller. However, Poplar Fruit was caught in a trap of his own making. After he put Kiki down, Dejun also wanted to ride the big horse. When Dejun was done, The children also wanted to play. The cycle continued until Poplar Fruit saw a car stop in the distance. He saw Xian and his father come out. Xian is back. Poplar Fruit smiled. Kiki, shall we go down to welcome little brother Xian? Okay. Kiki nodded happily. At that moment, Dejun felt an inexplicable sense of crisis. He followed Poplar Fruit down and wanted to pull Kiki back to the roof. Kiki, let's continue playing up there, okay? I'm not going. Kiki pulled her father's hand and avoided brother Dajuan. She shook her head and said, no matter how beautiful the scenery was, one would get tired of it after looking at it for so long. While Dejun was at a loss, Xian on the other side was also at a loss. I decided to keep this scene because Xian did a great job. In the original version, Xian's bashful appearance was super likable. Look, sister is over there. Go. Zhou Shimin whispered to his son and asked him to bring a white thing to Kiki. However, Xian took a few steps forward and hesitantly returned to his father's side. Go. Zhou Shimin was anxious for his son. Although it was just a small spark between children, Xian couldn't be so cowardly. No, you. Little Chuangshuan was even more anxious. He pulled his father's hand and said anxiously, no, you come with me. Go by yourself. Zhou Shimin looked at the surrounding staff members who were covering their mouths and laughing. He felt a little embarrassed. He was like a father who was secretly anxious for his son to not be able to pursue a girl. The scene was indeed a little comical. However, there was more of a flow of pink. The atmosphere became a little warm and sweet. Many staff members were secretly cheering for little Chuangshuan. Poplar Fruit naturally also saw the wedding dress in Xian's hands. His heart was moved, but he didn't say anything. He only held his daughter's hand and smiled slightly. They were both children who weren't even 5 years old. Why think so much? 2 innocent young children. Perhaps when they thought about this in the future, it would be very beautiful too. You want to give it to her yourself. Zhou Shimin held back his laughter, afraid that it would make his son even more embarrassed. He encouraged, you want to give it to her yourself. Go. Thus, little Chuangshuan mustered up his courage and hugged the wedding dress and ran forward. In the end, he didn't even run 10 meters before his courage was exhausted. As if he was pulled by a spring, little Chuangshuan turned around and ran back. Why did you come back? Zhou Shimin asked in disappointment. Let's go together. Just once. Xian begged in a childish voice. Zhou Shimin encouraged his son again. He even pointed at Kiki, who was standing gracefully beside his father, and encouraged Xian to go by himself like a brother. However, Xian didn't have the courage. In the end, Zhou Shimin still had to accompany him. He helplessly smiled bitterly. To be honest, Zhou Shimin didn't want to go either. Why? Because that girl's father was standing beside her. Even if he was the boxing champion, Zhou Shimin didn't want his son to be friendly with someone else's daughter in front of him. However, Xian didn't live up to expectations. What could he do? Fortunately, with his father's company, Xian's fearful appearance was swept away. A confident smile appeared on his chubby face, and his steps became more energetic. When they reached the front, Zhou Shimin let his son go by himself. He quietly took a step back and left the stage to his son. Xian walked forward. His eyes were filled with the young lady who was leaning on his father. Although the little Missy was no longer wearing a princess dress, her youthful and energetic appearance made it seem as if a princess had shed her wealth and grace, a fairy had shed her celestial arrogance, and an angel had shed her wings that didn't belong to the mortal world. She seemed to be just an ordinary girl with a face that could outshine the moon and flowers. She seemed to have a delicate and refined temperament. It seemed to make people's hearts beat faster. Kiki didn't know why, but at that moment, she also became shy. She didn't play as close to Xian as before. Instead, she shyly held her father's hand and only greeted him slightly, "Brother Xian." Kiki's shy smile could be said to be the most memorable scene in the second episode. Poplar Fruit didn't notice that his daughter's smile made the intoxicating sunset between heaven and earth lose its color. The vast mountainous landscape of the Lust Plateau also lost its magnificence. In Xian's eyes, The only thing left in the world was the white flower in front of him swaying in the wind. The background of Kiki's t-shirt was white. That was the most beautiful smile he had seen in his entire life, more than 3 years. Little chubby Xian was mesmerized and forgot what he wanted to say. Kiki, look what is brother Xian holding. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. A princess dress. Kiki bit her lower lip and said shyly in a small voice. After saying that, she hid behind her father again. Only half of her body was exposed. She couldn't take her eyes off the princess dress. I like it so much. Kiki's eyes were sparkling. To put it simply, yesterday the book friend fake monk used brother Qingyang to say that the book was about to end. It was indeed about to end, but not so soon. A while ago, there were book friends who complained that Xiaohan was being lame again. Xiaohan really didn't want to be lame because the book's results weren't ideal. If it could be finished, Xiaohan would have finished it long ago. But from the looks of the plot, there were still many episodes before it was finished. So it should be written for a while. It's undeniable that Xiaohan also couldn't bear to part with Kiki. Although the book's results were terrible and there were many points to criticize, he had been writing it very seriously. In the later episodes, Xiaohan watched them many times. There were many touching scenes and he couldn't bear to skip them directly. So it looked a little lame. Please forgive me. Chapter 1196. It wasn't unreasonable to think of the wedding dress as a princess dress. After all, they were both beautiful and had the same fluffy lace. How could Kiki not like it? She had always dreamed of becoming a princess who was both beautiful and magical. However, in addition to the faint pink color, there was also a bit of nervousness and shyness. The two children were too embarrassed to speak. Xian, how did you get such a beautiful dress? Is your mission today to act as a princess? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. He spoke to ease the atmosphere. Xian's fashionable curly hair made many villagers think that he was a girl. No. Xian hugged the dress and quickly shook his head. His voice became smaller and smaller because of shyness. I gave it to my sister. Wow. Kiki, look. Xian brother wants to give you a princess dress. Poplar Fruit pulled his daughter's hand and pulled the shy girl up. He then squatted down and laughed a little exaggeratedly. Xian, you're so awesome. You bought a princess dress for your sister? Kiki blushed and smiled a little shyly. She pulled her father's hand and jumped. She stretched out her small arm to cover her father's mouth. She felt that her father was too direct. How could you expose someone's gift so directly? Xian brother will be shy. Xian looked at Kiki with some envy and love. She was not like him, chubby. She had long arms and legs and could jump very high. Her light figure was like a cute little deer, bumping into his heart. We went to a very, very far place. Xian said in a childish voice. His hoarse voice, how interesting was it to listen to at this moment? Unfortunately, although he had mustered up the courage to say it, he still didn't catch the main point. Kiki, listen. Poplar Fruit smiled and hugged Kiki, who was moving around shyly in his arms. He let her lean on his chest and said to chubby Xian. Xian said that he went to a very, very far place to buy you this beautiful dress. Unfortunately, Xian didn't give any details. Zhou Shimin, who was worried about him, had no choice but to step forward and say, we went a long way today to buy a wedding dress for Grandma. Kiki's mouth was slightly open as she leaned into her father's arms. It was as if she was listening to an adventure story. But through his efforts, he specifically asked the boss if you could give me a dress. Zhou Shimin made a long story short. But Poplar Fruit saw little chubby Xian smiling foolishly. This child was really a little cute. Regardless of whether he had the help of an adult or not, it was already very good that he could do this at the age of 3. I want to give it to my favorite sister. Zhou Shimin directly confessed on behalf of his son. After he finished, he lowered his head and muttered to his son. Dad said it for you, but this is all I can help you with. However, looking at little chubby Xian holding the dress and smiling foolishly, he probably didn't hear what his father whispered to him. The audience could see that little chubby Xian wanted to be reserved, but he couldn't help but break into a childish smile. It was really good. At this time, little chubby Xian became the darling of the audience, especially the big sister audience. I really want to hug him and pinch his little chubby face. He's so cute. Io. Poplar Fruit was also a little moved by little chubby Xian. He smiled and nudged his daughter, saying, Kiki, did you hear that? She heard it. Kiki hugged her father's arm and smiled shyly. She didn't say anything, but her emotions were written all over her face. Little chubby Xian fidgeted for a while before asking softly, Do you like it? When he asked, he was still a little nervous. Although he couldn't help but smile, he still secretly glanced at Kiki, who was more beautiful than a flower, through the dress. He felt a little uneasy. I like it. Kiki also replied softly. Looking at the dress in little chubby Xian's hands, her eyes were smiling like two crescent moons. She nodded slightly. The little girl didn't dare to look at the teasing faces of her father and the other uncles. Little chubby Xian was so happy that he couldn't help but smile. He stuck out his tongue cutely, as if he was still a little scared from the nervousness just now. Then he felt that it wasn't good to be too happy, so he secretly looked at the camera. His little rabbit teeth bit his lower lip and then loosened, but the smile on his face couldn't hide the joy in his heart. Looking at his helpless expression, many of the audience members were reminded of their own first love. Not to mention the ending, when they first confessed to each other. Were they also nervous and shy like him? After they succeeded, did they also want to hold back their laughter? They were still children. Little chubby Xian's performance convinced more and more of the audience. At this time, although Dejun didn't want to be left out, Kiki and little chubby Xian, as well as the two fathers, seemed to have formed a small world. Dejun couldn't disturb this warm moment. Come, let's take a look first. Let's take a look first, okay? Poplar Fruit took the dress from little chubby Xian's hands and opened it for Kiki to see. Without the dress to hug, little chubby Xian was so nervous that he didn't know where to put his hands. He could only unconsciously shake his arms and smile foolishly. The dress was spaghetti straps. It was indeed a wedding dress. But on Kiki, it would definitely be a beautiful princess dress. This is little chubby Xian's gift to you. Kiki, don't you think it's beautiful? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Beautiful. Kiki nodded and replied softly. At this moment, the little girl also became reserved. She didn't know if it was because she felt like she had to look like a princess in front of the dress, or because she was very shy right now. Kiki's gaze didn't leave the dress in her father's hands. She reached out and touched it, then Poplar Fruit let her take it. Kiki, what do you want to say to little chubby Xian? Poplar Fruit reminded with a smile. She couldn't just look at it. She left little chubby Xian hanging to the side. Thank you, Kiki said softly. It was as if this word of gratitude was the best reward that the princess could give to the knight. Little chubby Xian instantly laughed. His laugh was so heartless and so satisfied. As if his whole body was filled with energy, little chubby Xian cried out and bent down to pick up the dress that was about to touch the ground. Just like yesterday, little chubby Xian wanted to help Princess Sister lift the dress. He's really good. Really. Poplar Fruit and Camera both gave a thumbs up. Although a father would always see his daughter's followers as his enemy, at this moment, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but praise him. Of course, everything was built on the basis that the two were innocent. If he really wanted to pursue his daughter, Poplar Fruit would still have a dark face and pick up a broom to chase him away. Hey, come up. Little chubby Xian was so excited that he covered Princess Sister's face with the dress. Ha 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 ha. Chi-Chi, on the other hand, wasn't unhappy. Instead, she was happy and giggled as she gave little brother Xian a big hug through her dress. Do you want me to wear it? The little girl's voice was as pleasant as a silver bell. Ha 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 ha. Little chubby Xian was embarrassed. I really like this scene. After watching it a few times, I realized that I really like little chubby Xian. Previously, Xiaohan thought that the best boy in little chubby Xian was Boss Kong and Nuoi. However, looking back at this scene carefully, I can't help but give little chubby Xian a thumbs up. So Xiaohan kept this plot. Will everyone like it? Also, Xiaohan is very conflicted about Nuoi. Everyone can see that he doesn't appear much. It's not that he doesn't like Nuoi. Nuoi is a very good child. If it wasn't for Xiaohan creating the character of Kiki, Xiaohan would definitely like him very much. But there's no other way. Seeing him being so close to Xia Tian in the later parts of the show, the two of them acting like childhood sweethearts, and thinking about how he might be involved in this later, he couldn't feel happy. As mentioned in a book for a father, marrying off his daughter is a very perverted thing. Xiaohan wrote Kiki as his own daughter. So the little boy she likes, is destined to be Xiaohan's enemy. Smiley face. Of course, the book won't continue like this. Everyone, don't worry. Xiaohan will try his best to coordinate the relationship between Kiki and her friends, including Nua Yi. Chapter 1197. Poplar Fruit brought Kiki home to change into the princess dress. Poplar Fruit only asked his daughter to take off her t-shirt and change into a more comfortable vest before putting on the beautiful wedding dress. I haven't even bought a wedding dress for Bebe yet. She already has a boy buying a wedding dress for her. Poplar Fruit said sourly to the photographer as he watched his daughter happily admiring herself in front of the mirror. Come Kiki, put on your coat. It's cold at night, don't catch a cold. Poplar Fruit patted the sling wedding dress, leaving Kiki's smooth shoulders exposed to the air. She didn't have much flesh, but she couldn't let a boy see it. On the other side, Zhou Shimin was caught by Lin Yongjian. According to the final script that Poplar Fruit and Lin Yongjian discussed in the morning, Zhou Shimin would be in this performance. After a simple dinner, Poplar Fruit was worried that Kiki would be hungry, so he made her a bottle of warm milk to drink. Then he held Kiki's hand and went to the big square at the entrance of the village. The stage for the performance had already been set up. Although the sky was dark, the warm light shone on the stage, reflecting the simple smiling faces of the villagers below the stage. The lively atmosphere was already brewing. Kiki. Suddenly, a happy cry broke the silence between Poplar Fruit and his daughter. He turned around and saw that Nua Yi had returned. He jumped out of the car and happily ran towards Kiki. She hadn't seen him for the whole day. The mixed-blood handsome Nua Yi actually looked a little unkempt. Of course, he was wearing the clothes of the villagers, but he still looked very handsome. Brother Nua Yi. Kiki also happily ran over and held hands with her little friend. She asked, "Where did you go today?" My dad and I used potatoes and then exchanged them for a refrigerator." Nui jumped up and down, full of energy, and excitedly chattered with Kiki about today's magical experience. At this moment, Poplar Fruit could not be bothered with the little ones. He ran over and, together with Lu Yi and the shop owner, carried the large refrigerator that was taller than a person. "Brother Yi, I heard that you traded potatoes for this fridge?" Poplar Fruit asked curiously. "How did you do it?" "Sigh, it's a long story, but let me tell you, it's definitely not simple. You have no idea how many places Nua Yi and I went to today." Lu Yi smugly smiled at Poplar Fruit. "I'll talk to you later. I still have to thank the shop owner." After that, he hugged the shop owner, a bespectacled young man, and smiled. Thank you. Don't be in a hurry to go back tonight, okay? We have a performance. Do you want to stay and watch?" Poplar Fruit suggested with a smile. Although he did not see it with his own eyes, he guessed that when Lu Yi finally exchanged the fridge, he did not use anything good to exchange for it. It must have been the shop owner who lost a lot of money. While they were chatting, on the other side, Kong Kong and Hu Jun also returned. "Brother Kong Kong." Nua Yi and Kiki excitedly shouted and ran over. However, Director Kong had always been cold and only nodded slightly. Then, together with his dad, he carried the LCD TV and walked forward with his head held high. Although the little boy did not say much, he was also very proud. "Senior, you also succeeded? You actually used a corn cob to exchange for an LCD TV. That's awesome." Lu Yi ran over and gave Kong Kong a high five as if they were close friends. Then he said to Hu Jun, "If you thought that Lu Yi was praising Hu Jun, then you were wrong. This fellow never got tired of others praising him." Hu Jun smiled and said, "You're the awesome one. A potato exchange for a refrigerator worth thousands or tens of thousands." Indeed, Lu Yi immediately beamed with joy, like a child showing off. Sister. Little Chuangshuan also came over and said to Kiki, My dad and I are going to take the wedding dress to Grandma. Do you want to come along?" Little Chuangshuan secretly looked at Kiki, who was wearing the dress that he worked hard to get. Although she was wearing a pink jacket, little Chuangshuan still felt that Kiki looked even more beautiful in it. He was embarrassed to say it in front of Kiki, but his happy smile was self-evident. Okay, I want to go. Kiki nodded. Nui, who was hugging brother Kong Kong and chatting nonstop, also ran over and said with bright eyes, I want to go too, I want to go too. He did not seem to have any intention of changing out of his rustic villager outfit. His unreliable dad did not expect this either. Look at Xian Xian's dad. When Xian Xian gave the dress to Kiki, he had already asked Xian Xian to change back into the cool leopard print outfit. Although it was a little weird, it still looked quite fashionable on Xian Xian. It was really like comparing fathers, infuriating fathers. A few friends and Zhou Shimin, who was holding the dress, went to complete the last task. Poplar Fruit did not go with them. He went with Lin Yongjian, who had just arrived, to make the final preparations for the party. For example, gathering all 4 of the extras. After understanding the significance of today's performance, Poplar Fruit could not help but praise the production team. It was really good. The people they wanted to celebrate were the veterans who had experienced the war 70 years ago. They were the backbone of the Chinese nation. Then, the production team wanted to hold a wedding for one of the veterans and his wife who had gone through thick and thin with him. This could be regarded as the main theme of this year's celebration of the 70th anniversary of the war. If they did not talk about the main theme, they could let the children understand the group of veterans through the show, understand the difficult years of the war in the past, and even let the children, through very difficult efforts, prepare the dowry for the veteran couple. This could let them experience the hard-won happiness of today's life, and let them learn to cherish and be grateful. Poplar Fruit thought to himself. It was very meaningful. Kiki had already come out of her grandmother's room. She was the first to run to her father, and could not wait to share what she had seen with him. Papa, Papa. Kiki took her father's hand and lifted the long skirt. She giggled and said, We gave Grandma a wedding dress. Did you see Grandma? Is she beautiful? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Super beautiful. Then, after putting on the wedding dress, she was even more beautiful. Kiki nodded with a sincere look on her face. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, Really? Then you are going to perform for Grandma's wedding later. Do you feel very happy? Do you feel full of energy? Yes. The little girl clenched her fists and looked up at her father with a smile. Papa, you have to work hard too. We must make Grandma happy. Chapter 1198. At the start of the evening party, the first program was presented by Teacher Lin and Yanghua. However, at the start of the program, the limelight was stolen by Nui. Nui was dressed in rural clothes that were obviously too long. Coupled with his bold and imaginative thinking, his answers were completely different from the village head and the hosts. He made everyone laugh. It was unknown how Lu Yi managed to raise such a daring and interesting child. Anyway, this unreliable father was laughing very happily in the audience. Finally, it was time for the program that the fathers had meticulously planned. Xiao Han had changed the original program. Otherwise, it would feel like the 2 programs were separate. It would be too divisive. My dear fellow villagers, how are you? Lin Yongjian was able to speak the native Western Shaanxi dialect, because he was originally from Dongshan province, which was not far from Western Shaanxi. Moreover, he often acted in revolutionary movies, so he had long mastered this dialect. Hearing this, the villagers were overjoyed and cheered. I'm your friend. My name is Lin Yongjian. Of course, it was also because of his friendly smile. Everyone felt that Lin Yongjian was actually quite down to earth, like a real villager. Kiki, the goose is your friend. The goose is called Lin Yongjian. Kiki also followed suit. Dejun also tried, but it was not as good as Kiki said. It was because of his talent in languages. Poplar Fruit, who had not yet had their turn to go on stage, held his daughter's hand. His heart skipped a beat as he smiled and asked his daughter, Kiki, later Daddy will show you the dialect, okay? Daddy will speak like Uncle Lin. Okay. Kiki clapped her hands and then lifted her skirt. She happily said, Daddy, since you've learned it, you have to teach me, okay? Poplar Fruit chuckled in his heart. Was there a need to learn? After living here for more than a day, Poplar Fruit had a basic grasp of the pronunciation rules of the Western Shaanxi dialect. For example, Mandarin was pronounced with a single tone, while the dialect here was pronounced with a soft tone. For example, when pronouncing words that started with a vowel or semivowel, there would be an eta, ing, as the initial consonant. This is purely from Baidu. Please ignore any incorrect parts. Although he might not be able to learn it 100% accurately, it would be enough if he could learn it 80% to 90%. In 1937, the Japanese entered the Central Plains. Lin Yongjian sang in a dialect, which was even more stunning. Of course, at this time, the limelight was stolen by another man. As soon as he jumped onto the stage, he was greeted with laughter and applause. It turned out that it was Zhou Shimin. He was wearing a Japanese military uniform and holding a prop gun. He was bow-legged and acted like a Japanese. She didn't know if it was because she had watched Pan Changjiang's Raise Your Hands from 10 years ago, but the silly Japanese were exactly the same. He swayed around the audience and attracted a lot of laughter and applause. Especially Nui, who waved his hands exaggeratedly as if he had seen a ghost. That's my father. A hoarse and childish voice rang out beside Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit and Kiki turned around to look. Little chubby Xian had unknowingly run to their side. He dutifully lifted Kiki's skirt. The little piggy knight had come for the princess. Thank you, little brother Xian. Kiki only just realized. First open Lugo Bridge, then enter Shanghai Pass. Lin Yongjian sang, and Zhou Shimin acted. I took a good aim. Bam, I killed a translator. As the song ended, Zhou Shimin staggered and fell backwards. This acting could be given 80 points in a TV drama. It wasn't over yet. The really fun part was that Lin Yongjian would keep singing, Pa killed a translator, pa pa. As if there were really a lot of bullets flying towards him, Zhou Shimin stood up and fell down again. The audience below the stage couldn't laugh anymore. No wonder when Lin Yongjian looked for Zhou Shimin, he asked him to act as the Japanese military officer torturing Ichiro. Lin Yongjian was having a lot of fun, while Zhou Shimin used his life to portray the misery of the clown. He was like a fish that was thrown ashore, crazily twisting and turning like a carp. After playing for a while, Zhou Shimin walked off the stage. This meant that the Japanese had been eliminated. Then it was Kiki's turn to reward the 8th Route Army. Lin Yongjian sang, Come in the first lunar month. It's the new year. Kiki, Daddy will go on stage first. Later, you and Brother Dajuan must bring the children up. Poplar Fruit reminded her and hurriedly took off his jacket, took out 2 large fans from his yanko and walked onto the stage. Ha 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 ha. The audience burst out laughing even louder than before. It turned out that Zhou Shimin was the Japanese military officer just now. This time, it was Poplar Fruit dressed as a woman. Looking at his tall and big figure, he actually wore a red and green village girl suit. Other than the self-destructive blush on his face, he really looked like a village girl, waving a large fan and dancing yanko. This scene could be said to be Poplar Fruit's most undignified performance in his life. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't have the burden of being an idol. When he saw Kiki jumping and dancing in joy below the stage, he was satisfied. Catch up with the pigs and sheep out of the house. Lin Yongjian was really good. He could even sing a line for so long. Under his signal, Kiki took the lead and brought a few children up the stage. Each of them held a bouquet of flowers in their hands. Counting, including Kiki, there were a total of 6 children. No, why was there a Xian behind Kiki? Hello everyone. Poplar Fruit also stopped dancing. He took a microphone from below the stage and greeted everyone in the same dialect. You may not know me, but I'm Poplar Fruit. Nice to meet you all. Indeed, many people didn't know Poplar Fruit at first, but after 2 days of filming, they went to find out more about him. Of course, they knew where Poplar Fruit came from, what he did, and what kind of celebrity he was. But this tall and handsome young man's down-to-earth performance made them cheer for him. Poplar Fruit is also from the north? The audience couldn't help but ask, how can he speak the local dialect? What's so strange about it? A fan of Poplar Fruit jumped out and said proudly, Poplar Fruit knows more than a dozen foreign languages. How can a dialect similar to Mandarin be difficult for Poplar Fruit? Poplar Fruit and Kiki were very down-to-earth. From the first episode to the second episode, they never showed off their foreign languages. This led to people not knowing that Kiki could also speak several foreign languages fluently, and Poplar Fruit's talent in languages was gradually forgotten by the audience. This was just a small show of skills. There was still a long way to go. The father and daughter's language skills wouldn't be analyzed so quickly. Chapter 1199. Xian and Mo Min miraculously appeared in the group of 6 children. This was an unexpected situation that happened during the performance. Lin Yongjian scratched his nose and wondered if he should ask Xian to leave. After all, he didn't participate in the rehearsal from the beginning to the end. He was afraid that he would disturb everyone. However, Poplar Fruit smiled and gave Lin Yongjian a look, indicating that he was fine. Today, I'm going to thank the veterans who brought us a peaceful and beautiful life, so I brought a lot of cute animals for the veterans. Come, introduce what animals you are one by one, okay? Poplar Fruit returned to normal Mandarin, smiled, and extended the microphone to Kiki. Although the sweet little girl was wearing a coat that was not very matching, the plain white wedding dress made her look as beautiful as a princess. Her happy smile that came from the bottom of her heart added a bit of childlike cuteness to her beauty. I'm a horse. Kiki couldn't stop smiling, but she still made the action of pulling the reins, and then imitated a few horse noises. Wow, you're a horse? How can there be such a beautiful horse? Poplar Fruit was a bit exaggerated, but also very sincere in his praise. Because she's a princess horse. Dejun interrupted. Xian raised his curly hair and looked at them blankly. He didn't know what his sisters were playing, but he still nodded in agreement. Yes, I'm a princess horse. Kiki was so happy that she kept smiling. Is that so? A princess horse. Such a beautiful princess horse. I believe the veterans will like it very much. Poplar Fruit exaggeratedly waved his fan and laughed. His acting was exaggerated, just like when he was a guest star in the Unexpectedly micro movie. If he didn't have good acting skills, he had to use exaggerated expressions and actions to cover it up. Then what animal are you? Poplar Fruit pointed the microphone at Dejun. I'm a dog. Dejun said. Woof woof. You're a dog. I know that dogs are also very powerful. They will protect our home, just like how our grandfathers protected our country, right? Poplar Fruit continued to exaggerate. I'm Prince's dog. However, Dejun didn't play according to Poplar Fruit's plan. He and Kiki were laughing happily together. The audience couldn't help but feel anxious for the dejected little fatty Xian. Fortunately, the other children were very cooperative. They accurately said the names of their species and said their lines. Of course, Poplar Fruit wouldn't miss out on little Chu Xian, who had been sincerely holding the hem of the young lady's skirt and foolishly standing behind her like an invisible person. He turned around and pointed the microphone at Xian. He smiled and said, How are you? What kind of animal are you? Little fatty Xian was stunned. He looked at Uncle Poplar Fruit in a daze, not knowing how to answer. Fortunately, the kind-hearted Kiki walked over and put her hands on her brother's shoulders. She smiled at her father's microphone and said, I know. Oh, Princess Horse. You know? That's great. You tell everyone what kind of animal is he? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He's a cat, a super cute Garfield cat. Kiki giggled. Princess and Garfield cat are good friends. At first, everyone didn't understand Kiki's logic. However, after the program put up the classic American cartoon character Garfield, many of the audience members who were born in the 1980s suddenly understood and laughed. Fatty was very greedy, a little lazy, and a little narcissistic. He was also strong and cute. Wasn't the image of Garfield cat in the cartoon very similar to Xian? Xian quickly nodded. Kiki's last sentence, Princess and Garfield cat are good friends, moved him. Is that so? Then Garfield cat should be like other animals and greet the audience, okay? Poplar Fruit laughed. You have to say meow meow. Kiki whispered in Xian's ear. Xian nodded and said in a childish voice, I am Garfield cat meow meow. Little chubby Xian even scratched his head. In front of so many villagers, little chubby Xian was also nervous. Luckily, Princess Sister was by his side. Oh, very good. You are all very good. Then what should we do next? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Pigs, sheep. Lin Yongjian raised his head. Pigs, sheep, where are we sending them? Send them to our relatives, by a Lu army. Pigs, sheep, where are we sending them? Send them to our relatives, by a Lu army. The little ones all sang with all their might, tirelessly repeating it. Poplar Fruit smiled and gave each child a microphone. Of course Kiki, who loved singing, sang very hard and attentively. Very good, very good. You can actually sing such a good song. Poplar Fruit clapped his hands and shouted with a smile. Then, who can tell me now, where are our old soldiers? There. The audience below the stage laughed and pointed to the old soldiers' guest seats. Thank you very much. Children, let's go find the old soldier's grandpa, and then give the flowers in your hands, okay? Poplar Fruit smiled and led the group of children off the stage with Lin Yongjian's army supporting Yanga singing. The applause below the stage was thunderous. Everyone had been laughing just now, but the applause at this moment was really from the heart. It was really not easy to let the children participate in the performance and arrange such a wonderful and interesting fairy tale drama. Poplar Fruit held his daughter's hand and led the way to the old soldiers. The old soldiers also stood up. They were 70 or 80 years old and looked shaky, but they had a kind of spirit that would never fall. Kiki, go and hold Grandpa's hand. Dad taught you just now. Poplar Fruit smiled and finally instructed his daughter. In fact, below the stage, Poplar Fruit had introduced the old heroes to his daughter in detail. So Kiki went forward with a look of worship and signed the hand of a white-haired old man in a military uniform. The smile on her face faded, but it left behind a sincere respect. Grandpa, I'll give you flowers. Kiki said sweetly. I wish you good health and longevity. Good child. The old soldier reached out and patted Kiki's little head and smiled shakily. And this scene was also shown by the other children. Nuai and Kong Kong, who didn't have any acting tasks, were brought over by their father to greet the old soldiers. There was a bit of chaos here for a while. Poplar Fruit brought Kiki to the end of the audience. Kiki didn't go with the other children, only Xian Xian and Zhou Shimin followed behind. Xian still had a task. Chapter 1200. The veterans went on stage together to show their faces. They stubbornly did not need anyone's help. Although some of them needed crutches to stand steadily, the audience below the stage gave them heartfelt applause. Finally, the veteran who was going to hold the wedding of the century today stayed. His name was Bai Yongxiang. He was 88 years old this year, and he was still a company commander back then. The old man was as thin as firewood, but after wearing a green military uniform, he looked very tall and straight. His eyes seemed to be a little sick, but they were still bright and full of vigor. When he introduced himself, a strong aura came over. The village chief, who was acting as the host, took out a photo of Grandpa Bai. The old man was also a handsome man when he was young. Today, please use the warmest applause to welcome Grandma Bai. Today our bride will come on stage. Please. After the village chief's voice fell, everyone applauded and looked back. Grandma Bai, who was behind him, was ready. Papa, can I take off my coat? Kiki raised her head and looked at Poplar Fruit. I want to wear it like Grandma Bai. Oh, I forgot about that. Take it off. When you come down later, you have to ask Papa to wear a coat. Papa is afraid that you will catch a cold. Poplar Fruit laughed. He quickly helped his daughter take off the pink rabbit coat. The little girl's beautiful appearance in the wedding dress was finally shown in front of her friends. She was really beautiful. The praise from the surrounding villagers was not exaggerated at all. In truth, Chi-Chi was also a clothes hanger. She was beautiful enough to cause the downfall of a city, and her figure was the kind of thin and tall that would look good in anything. Wearing the spaghetti strap wedding dress, her shoulders were like jade, and her skin was as white and smooth as milk. Her slender and long arms were holding a bouquet of flowers wrapped with ribbons. People could not help but sigh. She is more beautiful than flowers. Poplar Fruit smiled and stepped aside. At this moment, The protagonists of the camera should be the two children. Kiki and Xianxian walked together hand in hand. Zhou Shimin held the flowers in his hands and forgot to give them to his son. He was anxious for Xianxian, who was ignorant. It was such a good opportunity. You can walk the red carpet with the sister you like. You can't just stand there like a fool. I know. Kiki twisted the hem of her dress, turned her head and said happily to brother Xianxian, I attended my Uncle Mosquito's wedding before. We are going to walk in front together. At that time, Kiki was also a flower girl. However, at that time, Kiki was wearing a princess dress, which was not as high-end as today's wedding dress. Alright. Xianxian couldn't take his eyes off Kiki. He smiled sweetly and foolishly. His golden coat and his curly hair made him look like a pundit. You don't have to help me lift my skirt. Kiki giggled with the flowers in her hands and said, You have to stand in a row with me. Then we can hold hands. Xianxian's eyes finally lit up. She happily walked to Kiki's side and reached out to hold her sister's hand. Next to him, Zhou Shimin facepalmed. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This kid really didn't listen to anything he said just now. How could he listen? Xianxian began to look at his sister with a silly smile again. The only thought left in his mind was, sister's hand is so cool and comfortable. Xianxian. Aya, you're still ignoring Dad, right? Poplar Fruit snickered at Zhou Shimin's depressed expression. Zhou Shimin had no choice but to walk over and put the flowers in his son's hands. In fact, Xianxian and Kiki were not suitable to be flower girls. Kiki was the second tallest among the 5 children. She was only slightly shorter than Kong. Perhaps the program team didn't take this into consideration when they made the arrangements. They directly let Xianxian and Kiki, who were the youngest, be flower girls. However, what was the problem? The real protagonist was Grandma Bai, who only had a wedding after a few decades. After the music started, the 2 children, Kiki and Xianxian, walked to the front. Grandma Bai, wearing a wedding dress, walked behind them. Although Granny Bai was old, she was still so beautiful in her pure white wedding dress. Time had left scratches on her face, but it had also precipitated decades of happiness. It was unknown how many people in the audience would be moved by this scene, but Poplar Fruit couldn't help but wipe away his tears. No matter how beautiful time is, it can't be more beautiful than you. No matter how cruel time is, it can't pull you away from my hands. Poplar Fruit secretly said in his heart, My little princess Kiki, Dad will always protect you. My baby Fong Beibei, I still need you to have a grand and beautiful wedding. Of course, I hope that in another 50 years, we can still hold hands and slowly grow old. Everyone, don't you think it's beautiful? The audience present didn't need the village chief to ask. They all applauded. Even the 2 children, Xianxian and Kiki, who were walking hand in hand at the front, seemed to be infected by the atmosphere of the scene. They walked in front devoutly. The lights shone on them, and their expressions were holy and their smiles were pure. Grandpa, who do you think this is? The village chief Li Rue asked with a smile. No one expected the old Grandpa Bai to be as naughty as a child. He grinned and said, I don't recognize him. The conversation between Grandpa Bai and the village chief could almost be made into a crosstalk. Grandpa Bai's optimistic and witty words made the audience below the stage and Kiki, who was standing on the stage, laugh uncontrollably. The wedding continued. Poplar Fruit noticed Kiki and Xianxian standing on the stage. Kiki was very good. She looked at Grandpa Bai and Grandma Bai and smiled sweetly. Her beautiful big eyes were like black pearls, as if she was also touched by the love between the 2 that had lasted for decades. Xianxian, on the other hand, didn't look away from Sister Kiki. He only looked down at the stage occasionally to look for his father. After the wedding, the party also ended. The children all went home. Poplar Fruit hurriedly put on a jacket for his daughter. What is Brother Kong doing? Kiki asked curiously as she brushed her hair that was a little wet from sweat. Among the children, Kong was the only one who had been supporting the old man who had been accompanying him. Brother Kong is sending the veterans home. Do you have trouble walking when you see your grandpas? Poplar Fruit smiled and asked, Do you want to go and help? He wanted to see his daughter's enthusiasm. Okay, let's go quickly. Chi-Chi happily jumped up and down, not caring that her skirt was very long. Brother Xianxian, Brother Dajuan, Brother Nuyi. On the way, Kiki kept calling for her good friends. I'm sending Grandpa home. Do you want to come with me? Well, the scene that was originally only showing President Kong was now filled with children. This scene was the most classic for Kong Kong. This child's heart was really good. Without her father's request, she helped her grandpa back. Why did Xiao Han want the other children to participate? Actually, it wasn't unfair to Kong Kong. It was mainly because in Where Are We Going, Daddy 3, it felt that the children couldn't integrate well and had a feeling of a small group. This wasn't good. Let's let Xiao Han change the overall atmosphere of the third season of Where Are We Going, Daddy? Kiki didn't only like to play with Xianxian and Dajuan. She wanted to be the bridge that connected the 5 children together. Chapter 1201. After a hot night, it was already late when Poplar Fruit and Kiki returned home. Poplar Fruit tidied up the clothes and prepared to give Kiki a bath. The dress needs to be folded. I like this dress very much. Kiki jumped down from the bed, wearing only a small singlet. The little girl saw that her father just folded the dress like the other clothes and put it in the open box. She immediately became anxious. You like it that much? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. It's okay. Dad will buy you another one later. No, Mama said that we can't spend money extravagantly. We already have clothes to wear, so we don't need to buy more. Kiki pouted and said with her hands on her waist. What if Dad buys you a better one? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. The little girl hesitated. She scratched her head and thought for a while. Then her eyes lit up and she said to her father slyly, Then I still want it. Then I'll tell Mama. Poplar Fruit was a little proud when he heard his daughter's first sentence, but he was dumbfounded and shouted, Hey little guy, you can't be so heartless. Hee. Kiki laughed and then was carried to the bathroom by her father as punishment. After the bath, Poplar Fruit and Kiki sat on the big mat outside the door. The owner had specially moved it for them, to watch the stars and chat. Of course, the main reason was that Kiki's hair had just been washed and was not dry. Poplar Fruit held his daughter's hair and shook it manually to let the night wind blow it dry before going back to sleep. Did you have fun these 2 days? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Super happy, Kiki replied without hesitation. Then do you want to come again next time? Poplar Fruit asked. Yes. Kiki suddenly thought of something and turned to look at her father and asked curiously. Next time? Yeah. We're going home tomorrow morning. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. In other words, we'll come out again during the next recording. Ah. Chi-Chi's mouth immediately pouted, and her expression was somewhat unhappy as she asked, Why? Have you forgotten? Wouldn't a single recording take 3 days and 2 nights? This is the second night we spent in the village, so this recording is over. Poplar Fruit explained. But that was not what Kiki wanted. She lowered her head, her fingers intertwining in front of her body as she said in a muffled voice, But I want to be with my friends. I really like Brother Xianxian, Brother Dajuan, Brother Nuyi and Brother Kong Kong. It was a little forced to add Brother Kong Kong to the list, but after today's Wanwan gathering, Brother Kong Kong, who was supporting the old man, really impressed Kiki. Of course we will be together. Maybe in a week or 2, you can go on a trip together again. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. We're going home tomorrow, and they're going home to see their mother. Kiki, you've been out playing for so long. Don't you miss your mother? And Jinzi. Kiki still pouted, but her thoughts were successfully diverted by Poplar Fruit. I miss Mama, and I miss Jinzi. But I want to go home and play with them often, Kiki said. Of course. Poplar Fruit could only draw a big picture for his daughter and said, In the future, if you miss any good friends, Daddy can bring you to play with them. Oh right, Daddy will go to Beijing often for meetings. If there's a chance, Daddy will bring you to play with them, okay? Brother Nuyi, Brother Dajuan, and Brother Kong Kong are all in Beijing. Kiki suddenly became happy again. She clapped her little hands and giggled. Okay. By the time Kiki's hair was dry, the little girl could no longer resist the sleepiness, and fell into a deep sleep. Poplar Fruit gently carried his daughter and sent her back to the house to sleep. However, Poplar Fruit was not sleepy yet. After he covered his daughter with a blanket, he sat quietly at the side of the study table. His fingers tapped slowly on the table without making a sound. He was thinking about something that had already moved his heart after tonight's banquet. The next day, early in the morning, Poplar Fruit woke up early again. When he came back from his training, even the production crew had not woken up yet. So the production crew, who originally wanted to film Poplar Fruit's morning training, decided to give up this time and film it next time. Young Luochi, my dear princess, it's time to wake up. Poplar Fruit laughed as he tickled his daughter, causing her to wake up with a smile. The village chief said that we have to pack up and gather at the village entrance before 8 o'clock. Quickly get up and change your clothes, then pack the luggage with Daddy. We might have to eat breakfast first. Younggwa took back the clothes that were hung out to dry yesterday and slowly folded them. She didn't hear any movement for a long time, so she turned around to look. Chi-Chi was actually lying down in the open box carelessly. Her long legs were even shaking. Originally, he wanted to laugh and carry the little girl, but Poplar Fruit noticed that his daughter's long eyelashes were moving. She did not look like she was asleep at all. Poplar Fruit's heart skipped a beat. He pretended not to know anything, but kept watching her from the corner of his eye. Kiki realized that her father did not come to catch her for a long time, and opened her eyes in confusion. He really did not care about her. She blinked her large eyes, thinking of a way to attract her father's attention. Hey! Poplar Fruit suddenly turned his head and looked at her with his eyes wide open. His expression was serious, but there was a smile on his lips. Wah! Kiki was shocked by her father. She cried for a while, and then giggled. Daddy is so bad, I obviously saw it. Hee, who told you to blink? Poplar Fruit said with a mischievous smile. Alright, I won't play with you anymore. Quickly get up. Daddy wants to put the clothes in. I can't get up, Daddy, pull me. Kiki pouted, waved her hands and called out coquettishly. I won't pull you. You can obviously get up. Look, your feet are already on the ground. Poplar Fruit exposed his daughter, then squatted down and began to put the clothes in the luggage. If you don't get up, Daddy will pack you in the luggage and bring you back. It's not fun, it's not fun. Kiki jumped out of the luggage, and then threw herself on her father's back. Her two small arms hooked around her father's neck and hung on him. Poplar Fruit did not let her down. He carried his daughter on his back and continued to pack the luggage. When they gathered at the entrance of the village, the children happily hugged each other. Every child was particularly energetic in the morning. They were full of vitality. One moment they ran around the entrance of the village, and the next moment they helped their fathers carry the luggage. However, they were indeed going to leave. Sitting on the villagers' donkey cart, the 5 pairs of father and son set out to leave Wengyangwa village. Of course, they also said their final goodbyes at the city's airport. You must miss me. My daddy said he would take me to play with you. Kiki reluctantly hugged her 4 friends, and went home with her father with red eyes. Chapter 1202. Ma, I'm back. Back home, Poplar Fruit was still taking out the key to open the door, but Kiki couldn't wait to press the walkie-talkie on the door. The little girl's cheerful voice resounded throughout the building. Fong Bebe was also waiting at the door. She hugged Kiki, who was bouncing over, and asked with a smile, Ma missed you so much. Did you miss Ma? Gold, who originally thought that its little master was rushing to it, could only circle around Fong Bebe. Like Poplar Fruit, it could only wait for the 2 of them to make room for it to squeeze in. I miss you so much. I miss you every night. But Papa said that we have to abide by the rules when we are recording the show. Even if we miss Ma, we can't call Ma. I even handed over my phone. Kiki pouted and said. After entering the house, Fong Bebe put Kiki down. Now that Kiki had grown up, although she was thin, she was also heavy. Fong Bebe didn't have the strength of Poplar Fruit to hold Kiki for a long time. She and Younggwa gently hugged each other. They had been an old married couple for more than 3 years. With this hug, their gazes intertwined with smiles, and their deep love for each other was indescribable. Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit packed up together, while Kiki was playing with gold. Fong Beibei asked with a smile. Kiki, what did you play when you were out for a few days? I can't tell you. Kiki cried without raising her head. Ah. Why can't you tell me? Fong Beibei asked with an aggrieved voice. Ha ha. Kiki laughed, ran over and threw herself on her father's back, and then blinked her big eyes at Fong Beibei. Because Papa said that I can't tell anyone about this, not even Mama Ma. Poplar Fruit actually only said the first half. He quickly gave his girlfriend a look, telling her not to worry, and that they would talk privately at night. Kiki, this fellow, liked to tell others her story. Poplar Fruit specifically told her not to tell anyone about the recording experience, especially the children in kindergarten. The show hasn't been aired yet, so it's not good to spoil it. The next day after returning home, Poplar Fruit used the excuse of going to school, but in fact, he secretly called Song Jiwen and drove to the jewelry store. Kid, you're also? Song Jiwen gave him a thumbs up and said, I thought you guys were going to turn the sprint into a long-distance race. Didn't you say that you would wait for her to graduate, including when we were engaged? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, so the time is not yet right, but in a month she will really graduate from college. I'm going to propose after she graduates. Ambitious, manly enough. Song Jiwen laughed and said, but you just finished recording, where did you go? Yes, I went to the first station. Poplar Fruit glanced at Song Jiwen and said, don't ask me about the plot. I won't tell you. Humph, why would I ask you this? If I ask, I won't be able to watch TV. I'm still waiting to see you make a fool of yourself, okay? Song Jiwen, a married man, still spoke as uninhibited as before. What I want to say is, what's wrong with you? You want to buy a diamond ring and propose as soon as you come back? Poplar Fruit smiled and said, you don't have to care what's wrong with me. Just hurry up and teach me how to pick one. Wrong. It was when he saw Grandpa Bai and Grandma Bai happily hugging each other on the second night in Shishan. Poplar Fruit suddenly wanted to give Fong Beibei a status immediately. Hee hee hee. Song Jiwen suddenly laughed. Poplar Fruit, who was driving, looked at him in confusion. Song Jiwen said leisurely, it's useless for you to be anxious. No matter how anxious you are, I got married earlier than you, half a year earlier, hee hee. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes at him. He was so bored that he wanted to kick Song Jiwen out of the car. On the other side, Yanghua and Song Jiwen went to buy a diamond ring, but they didn't talk about it for now. Poplar Fruit didn't really lie to Fong Beibei. In the afternoon, Poplar Fruit also went back to school. Unlike Fong Beibei, who was calmly waiting for her undergraduate degree, Poplar Fruit's studies were not so leisurely. In addition to the Chinese major he was studying, which required him to read a lot of books and write a lot of papers, he also had a foreign language teacher, who was whipping him to pay more attention to his job. Chen Zongdai was really unhappy. Poplar Fruit had secretly gone to record a show, leaving him in school to become a target for the reporters. Because of this, Chen Zongdai was very unhappy. When Poplar Fruit came back for an audience, he forced Poplar Fruit to sign an unfair contract. Before the end of the year, I want to see your linguistics thesis. Don't make it up. At least, it has to be on the level of translator genius! Chen Zongdai said fiercely to Poplar Fruit. Hee hee, teacher, this thesis can only be written with inspiration. We can't write it just because we want to, right? I'm not a thesis machine, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He actually knew that the old man was doing it for his own good. Now that he had a doctorate and had been a lecturer at Higashiyama University for a few years, if he continued to publish heavyweight theses, he should be able to be elected as an associate professor next year. After all, the university also wanted to promote a star professor who could attract students. Fuck off, if you don't have any inspiration, go back and think about it. Chen Zongdai waved his hand impatiently and said with jealousy, one moment you're doing a double doctorate, and the next moment you're on TV. If you spend more time on linguistics, you won't have any inspiration. Poplar Fruit just laughed like that, leaving the old man with nowhere to vent his anger. In fact, it was not that he didn't have any inspiration, but that inspiration was still in its infancy. He needed to cultivate it for a while before he could discuss it with the old man. Poplar fruit would not do things that he was not sure of, nor would he boast about things that were not realistic. Go. I know you're in a hurry to go home. Don't sit here pitifully, go back. Chun Zongdai was getting more and more helpless. He waved his hand and let Poplar fruit go back. The university was quite kind to Poplar fruit. When he went out to record the program, it just so happened that it conflicted with his own classes. The Academic Affairs Office helped to adjust the class schedule, so Poplar fruit would come back to school tomorrow to make up for the missed classes. The domestic remote teaching basically didn't require Poplar fruit to gather people for meetings. All the operations were carried out by the student unions of each school, adopting a one-to-one mode of assistance. In this way, Poplar fruit's personal role was reduced to the extreme. However, Poplar fruit didn't care. Instead, he felt that it should be like this. Public welfare, especially educational public welfare, should be participated by all people. It was impossible to pin hope on one person. However, Poplar fruit wouldn't just leave it like that. He would record videos for remote education and take 2 hours a week to teach the children in Xiong village, just like an ordinary volunteer. This kind of life was quite fulfilling. There won't be many transitional chapters, and soon the second trip will begin. Chapter 1203. A week before the start of the second trip, Poplar fruit brought his daughter to Mango TV to record the promotional video and the theme song. After seeing the script of the promotional video, Poplar fruit was shocked. Although it was a fairy tale story, why were his roles so strange? They were all cross-dressing. The script was set by the program team, so there would be no changes. There would only be a little adjustment. I can't act. Poplar fruit smiled bitterly and said to the director in charge, "The main thing is, my acting is so bad. It's super difficult to act as a man. You still want me to act as Little Red Riding Hood and the Mermaid? It doesn't matter, Teacher Yang. The audience will definitely like it if you force yourself. What we want is this kind of contrast." The director was a relatively young girl. She covered her mouth and laughed at Poplar fruit. "No, I really can't act. If you want me to pinch my orchid fingers and speak with a pinched throat, you might as well kill me." Poplar fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he waved his hand again and again. In the past, Poplar fruit was a pure man. Later, after practicing martial arts, he became a pure man. Although after having Kiki, Poplar fruit's heart was as soft as a balloon filled with water, he was still a pure man. He was still a very traditional pure man. He couldn't accept his sissy behavior, and he was even more unwilling to act as a woman. This was just a promotional video for the program. "But Papa, I want to act as Snow White." Kiki, who was next to him, took the script that her father threw on the table and pulled her father's clothes. "You want to act as Snow White, but in this script, it's written that your father will act as Snow White. It's not like you're going to act," Poplar fruit said with a wry smile. "Then I want to see Papa act as Snow White." Kiki was not as depressed as Poplar fruit imagined. Instead, she danced with great interest. The choreographer hugged Kiki and smiled at Poplar fruit. His expression was really asking for a beating. Poplar fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He scratched his head and looked at his daughter's expectant eyes. He smiled bitterly and asked, "Kiki, do you really want Daddy to play Snow White for you? If Daddy wears a girl's clothes, he might look very ugly." "No way. Kiki's Papa is the most handsome." Kiki clenched her little fist and said. However, she realized that she had said something wrong. She waved her little fist and said, "You're also the prettiest when you become a girl." "All right, there's nothing I can do." Poplar fruit, who was a slave to his daughter, spread out his hands and said to the director, "You guys won. Just act according to this script." Acting was not easy at all. Although the promotional video that the audience later saw was edited in more than a minute, Poplar fruit and Kiki took a whole day to finish shooting. This was also based on Kiki's excellent acting talent. In contrast, Poplar fruit, who always cheated his daughter, was often called cut by the director. In the end, he had to use exaggerated expressions to cover up his poor acting skills. Of course, Although dressing as a woman made Poplar Fruit somewhat painful, acting with his daughter was very precious. In the first scene, Poplar Fruit was still dressed as a man. In the super beautiful princess room, he was telling his daughter a bedtime story. From then on, the prince and the princess lived a happy life. Then Kiki would interrupt her father and say, No, it should be like this. Poplar Fruit didn't have any expression, but Kiki was super involved in acting. The little girl suddenly sat up from her father's arms, then waved her small hands and said, No. Poplar Fruit should be surprised at this moment, but he didn't. He just looked at his daughter with a smile. I think it should be like this. The little girl, who was wearing a more beautiful white princess dress, had soft hair, and a beautiful face, was making threatening gestures at this moment. It was as if there were really scenes in a fairy tale in front of her, and she was shaking the characters in the fairy tale to tell her father the plot in her heart. Cut! The director shouted. We have to do this again. Teacher Yang, your expression should be a little confused and a little surprised. You can't show that you know everything, okay? Papa, I'll teach you how to look confused. Then you have to look surprised. Kiki sat, and her small mouth was slightly open. She scratched her head, and then her small mouth formed an O shape. She even grabbed her two small fists and put them in front of her chest to protect them. Needless to say, Kiki's performance was quite vivid. Of course, the excessive exaggeration also made the surrounding staff laugh. Everyone thought that the little girl was too cute. Kiki, you did very well. Teacher Yang, you have to learn from your daughter. The director held back his laughter and said to Poplar Fruit with a smile, You just have to exaggerate a little. Therefore, after the promotional video was released, the audience was stunned by Poplar Fruit's exaggerated acting skills. Especially Poplar Fruit's fans. They were laughing and slapping the table. Oh my God! Poplar Fruit Appa, where's your image? Where's your bottom line? Your worldview has been destroyed. However, there was one thing that everyone recognized. Poplar Fruit was so handsome when he was a model, and when he played a woman, he was also a beauty. At that time, Poplar Fruit appeared in the room with Little Red Riding Hood makeup and a red dress. The staff was shocked, and Kiki giggled and clapped for her father. She even shouted, Papa is so beautiful. How should he put it? After Poplar Fruit's makeup, he didn't belong to the orthodox image of a beauty. However, after shaving his beard and putting on some makeup, he looked like a woman's face. Moreover, Poplar Fruit used to be soft in steel, but now he was soft with hardness. He actually had the neutral beauty of Lin Qingxia. Of course, Poplar Fruit still rejected it in his heart. But anyway, seeing that his daughter liked it, Poplar Fruit didn't have any thoughts. He just laughed happily with his daughter. After the final repair, Poplar Fruit put on a hood, put on the yellow hair of a foreign girl, and put on a red hat. A heroic Big Red Riding Hood appeared. On the other side, Kiki, wearing a prop costume, rushed to her father's side. She giggled and said, Papa, what do you think I am? Why do you have ears? Poplar Fruit pretended to be surprised, and then mischievously said, Is this your new rabbit costume? It's not a rabbit. Papa, don't you think I look like a big wolf? Kiki pouted her small mouth, showing the small mustache she drew with a pen. Wow, you're a big wolf. A big wolf with a beard. I'm so scared. Poplar Fruit exaggeratedly made a surprised expression, and Kiki was amused by him and giggled. Don't be afraid. Kiki's big wolf won't eat people. Giggle. Kiki laughed and rolled in her father's arms. Chapter 1204. Kiki, come here. Kiki ran for less than 2 minutes before her father's voice rang in her ears. Dad will take 2 photos for you as a souvenir. Poplar Fruit tidied up his big red hat outfit while taking out his mobile phone from Kiki's small bag. Poplar Fruit rarely carried a bag. He felt that it was too effeminate, so he often took Kiki's pleasant goat bag to carry his things. Eggplant. After taking the photo, Kiki wanted to snatch her father's mobile phone. Poplar Fruit didn't know why, but Kiki turned her head and handed it to the director's sister next to her. Papa, let's take a photo together. Kiki happily jumped, trying to pull down her father who was standing high. The director also had a bad smile on her face, which made Poplar Fruit somewhat flustered. No, I don't want to take a photo. How can I take a photo with what Dad is wearing now? Poplar Fruit shook his hand in panic and said, Kiki, after Dad goes back, I'll take 100 photos with you, okay? Oh, don't. Kiki shook her head and said unyieldingly, I just want to take such a photo with Papa. Papa is so beautiful. Next time, it would be very difficult to see her father dressed as a woman. Poplar Fruit helplessly shook his head, glanced at the director and other staff who were snickering, and thought, forget it, I'll take a photo. Anyway, I'll appear in this promotional video. So for the sake of his daughter, Poplar Fruit softened his heart and took a few photos with his daughter. Do you want to take a photo of Grandmother Wolf eating Little Red Hat? The director asked with a smile. Okay. Oh. Kiki answered for her father. She happily hugged her father's neck, and then kissed her father's face. The director quickly pressed the shutter. It was acceptable to treat eating as marriage. Poplar Fruit took the mobile phone, and the director added, Teacher Yang, the photo just now is the one where Kiki kissed you. You can post it on Weibo. After you post it, come to the set. Someone will arrange for it to be forwarded later. Poplar Fruit's face darkened, and then he listened to his daughter's chat as she walked away with the director. I still prefer Papa's Weibo. It's so fun. You like Weibo? Can you read it? The director asked. I can. Kiki was very smart. Then later, I'll get another lady to register a Weibo account for you, okay? The director laughed. That way, you can also play with your own Weibo. Really? This was a complete surprise. Of course. What name do you want your Weibo name? I haven't thought. In any case, Poplar Fruit's bottom line was pulled down again, and again on the set of the promotional video. In the end, he had no choice but to accept the mermaid costume with something stuffed in her chest. After shooting the promotional video, Poplar Fruit and Kiki waited for a day at Mango TV, waiting for the other 4 pairs of father and son who had rushed over. They had already taken time to shoot the documentary, but the theme song of Where Are We Going, Dad? Still required everyone to gather and sing together. After not seeing each other for more than 2 weeks, the children missed each other very much. Kiki held her father's hand and stood under the building, looking forward to it. Fortunately, her brothers didn't make Chi-Chi wait for too long. Soon enough, they were laughing and jumping together. Even President Kong couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that he actually missed his 4 friends very much. Everyone has gotten their hands on the manuscript of the lyrics. Everyone went straight to the recording studio to practice. For children, you couldn't expect them to be able to pass with just one recording after they practiced. It was best to record their singing from the beginning, and then choose a suitable combination from the hundreds of pieces of material. This was something they had done many times in the previous 2 seasons. They began practicing. First, Nuai and Luyi practiced speaking French. Kiki watched enviously from the side as she pulled her father's hand. What's wrong? Poplar Fruit understood and squatted down, letting his daughter hug his neck and whisper, I want to say it too. Kiki pouted. Say what? Poplar Fruit didn't understand. French. Kiki participated enthusiastically. She waved her hand and said, I can speak French too. It's fine. We are recording a Chinese program. You and I are both Chinese, so it's best to speak Chinese, okay? If you speak French, English, or other languages, the other brothers won't understand. Poplar Fruit smiled as he comforted his daughter. This was also what he had been asking his daughter since the beginning of the first episode. He and his daughter did know a lot of things. Furthermore, Poplar Fruit's academic qualifications were higher than any of the guests or even the program crew. If he kept showing off his foreign language skills, he would definitely not be liked by everyone. Last season's Feynman was like this. Although the child didn't do anything wrong, the moment he came out, he spoke English or his father spoke Cantonese, which made many viewers unhappy. Everyone would scold him for being a Chinese. Why didn't he teach the child Mandarin instead of English? This season's Nuai was super good. Although he was of mixed blood, he was more like a native of China. Not only did he have a strong northeastern accent, he was also obsessed with traditional Chinese myths like Journey to the West. Lu Yi and Anna's upbringing was unanimously praised by the entire country's audience. Poplar Fruit flipped to the back and pointed to a conversation between himself and his daughter. He smiled and said, "Kiki, look. We have a conversation here." Kiki immediately forgot her unhappiness and looked excitedly at the script in her father's hands. Then she began to recite, "Papa, I'm Princess Elsa." "What's Princess Elsa?" Poplar Fruit smiled and matched his daughter's words. "It's that Princess Elsa who knows magic." Kiki waved her small hands and said with love for acting, "Wow, it's that Princess Elsa who's super powerful in magic? Then what do you want to do with magic?" Poplar Fruit asked. "I want to use magic to protect Papa and not let him be bullied by others." Kiki giggled. At this moment, a musician wearing a hat stood up and clapped with a smile. He said, very good, very good. Has everyone practiced? Then next, let's invite our fathers to bring their children back to their respective microphones. Let's begin our first attempt at recording, okay?" "Okay." The children cheered excitedly. The fathers also responded with a smile. "Okay, everyone listen to the beat. If you're afraid of missing the beat, that's fine. The microphones in front of you have a row of small lights. If they light up, red, yellow, green. When the light turns green, that means it's your turn to sing. Dad, where are we going? With me here, there's nothing to be afraid of. Baby, I'm your big tree. I'll accompany you to watch the sunrise for a lifetime." Along with a song full of childlike interest and fatherly love. The second trip of the third season of Where Are We Going, Papa? Chapter 1205. For the second stop, we'll skip the 2 episodes in Zishuang Bana for now. It's important to save it for later. Time passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was early June. After spending the first day of June at the kindergarten, Poplar Fruit brought his daughter to the second stop. "Where do we go, Daddy?" This time, it was closer to Poplar Fruit's home. It was in Min Province, which was adjacent to Guangdong Province. Poplar Fruit and Kiki took a high-speed train to the meeting place. Then everyone got into a car sponsored by an advertiser and drove to Hucking Village, where the filming was taking place. In the car, Poplar Fruit followed the director's request and asked Kiki, "Kiki, I heard that there's a new friend joining us today." I know. Kiki smiled. "It's Brother Nuyi's sister. He showed me a photo last time. She's super pretty and super cute." Last time, she was actually referring to the recording of the song. The audience misunderstood, but the production team and Poplar Fruit did not intend to correct them. "Do you like Nuyi's sister?" Poplar Fruit smiled and asked. "Super. I also want to have a sister," Kiki said with sparkling eyes, "just like Sister Xiaoqi. She said she'll come and play with me at the end of the month." "Really? You Skyped with her again?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Yeah. Daddy, let's go and see our panda, okay? Little sister Little 7 has always said that she wants to go and see it." Chi-Chi was getting more and more off topic. This part was edited out by the production team. "Of course, no problem." Poplar Fruit smiled and nodded. Back to the topic, he asked, "But you didn't see Uncle Nuyi today, right?" Kiki scratched her head and said, "Yeah, why didn't Nuyi's daddy come?" "Because he was very busy with work today and couldn't come. Nuyi brought his sister over." Poplar Fruit said. "Nuyi's sister is very young. She's only a little over 3 years old. She might be very scared because she doesn't have her father by her side." Before Poplar Fruit could state his request, Kiki had already volunteered, patting her chest and saying, "Then I will help Brother Nuyi take care of his sister. I am super good at taking care of my sister." "So awesome?" Poplar Fruit smiled and gave his daughter a thumbs up. "Then let's make a deal today, okay? You're the big sister, so you have to take care of the little sister." Yes, I really like taking care of my sister. Then little sister also likes to play with me," Kiki said happily. "Alright, next question." Yonghua called back his daughter, who was looking out of the car window. "Chi-Chi, Daddy wants to ask you, what do you think of your ability to be independent? If Daddy isn't by your side, then there's Mama," Kiki said. She calmly spread out her skirt, not letting it become wrinkled. Today's outfit was picked out for her by Zheng Yujie. After knowing that Kiki was going on the show, Zheng Yujie, as an aunt, took over the responsibility of choosing the outfit for Kiki. However, it had to be said that the clothes Zheng Yujie picked out were very nice. Kiki was wearing a cartoon bow skirt suit, a cute mini-printed t-shirt on the top, and a cute heart-shaped half-hollowed skirt on the bottom. The combination of red and black, coupled with a cap with Mickey Mouse ears, made her look fashionable and cute. Under the skirt, there were black pantyhose that just reached her knees, and a pair of bright black leather shoes on her feet. The little girl looked full of youthful charm, full of vitality. What if Mama Ma isn't here either? She will also be very busy. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, "There's still Grandpa and Grandma, Grandpa and Grandma." Kiki was still very calm. "They're also very busy. You're the only one left at home. Gold can't be at home either." Poplar Fruit said cruelly. Kiki immediately looked at her father. She was very surprised, but she immediately wrinkled her delicate eyebrows, pouted her mouth and asked, "Papa, what happened to our family?" "Nothing happened," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "I just want to ask if you have the ability to live independently." No, Papa, you're lying." Kiki was very smart. She pulled her father's hand, pursed her lips and said, "Papa, don't tell me you don't want Kiki anymore." The little girl looked terrified and almost cried. Poplar Fruit panicked. Why did his daughter cry when he asked a question? How could it be? How could it be? Poplar Fruit quickly hugged his daughter and comforted her. "Papa just wants to know if you have the ability. Just like when we record a program. Don't we have a segment where you have to complete the task by yourself? But you can't scare people like this." Kiki pouted her mouth, patted her father's chest and whispered. In kindergarten, a child said that his papa was going to throw him away. He said that his papa would drive him into a forest and then leave him behind. Then he might never see his papa again. Nonsense, his papa must be scaring him. How could a papa be so cruel? Kiki, you have to remember that papa is the one who loves you the most. He will never, ever abandon you. Poplar Fruit patted his daughter's back and said with a smile. Although he said that, Poplar Fruit suddenly smiled bitterly at the camera. The audience began to guess the meaning of Poplar Fruit's smile. Looking at the conversation between the father and son in the other cars, they also asked the same question as Poplar Fruit. Could it be that the program team was going to give the fathers some kind of difficult problem this time? In any case, the car finally arrived at its destination. It was a quaint little village in Zhangzhou City, Min Province. A round and fat earthen building appeared in front of the children. Wow, Papa, look, that building is fat. Yes, the adjective fat was used by Kiki. Fat building, haha. Poplar Fruit laughed happily. Brother Nuyi. After Chi-Chi got out of the car and saw her friends, the gloominess she had in the car just now immediately disappeared. She giggled and ran over to them with her little leather shoes. Hey, you're not waiting for Papa. Poplar Fruit was still taking his and Kiki's luggage from the car. In the end, Kiki had already forgotten about her father. In her eyes, there were only old friends and new friends. Kiki hugged Nuyi, then bent down and put her hands on her knees. She blinked her big eyes and looked at the little girl with curly hair, fair skin, and exotic charm in front of her. However, the little beauty was very shy. She didn't even dare to make eye contact with Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi looked at her for a while, and then timidly hid behind her brother. Aya, Brother Nuyi, you haven't told me your sister's name. Kiki could only look at Nuyi for help and said, I want to be good friends with your sister too. Chapter 1206. Kiki, if you want to know someone's name, you have to introduce yourself first. Poplar Fruit said with a smile as he carried his luggage. Kiki suddenly understood. She reached out her little hand and said generously, Brother Nuyi's little sister. Hello, I'm Kiki. Can we be good friends? The little beauty was very shy in an unfamiliar environment and unfamiliar people. She simply threw herself into Nuyi's arms, but she still stole envious glances at the big sister in front of her. Big sister is so beautiful. Her name is Nina. She's a little shy. Nuyi pulled his sister out and said, Nina, this is Kiki. You can play with her. Can we hug? Kiki looked at Nuyi. Now that Nuyi's father wasn't around, everything depended on Nuyi. Sure. Under Nuyi's arrangement, Kiki happily hugged Nina. Nina, I want to give you my hat. Do you like it? Kiki suddenly did something that surprised even Poplar Fruit. She actually took off her favorite Mickey Mouse hat and put it on Nina. Nina was confused for a moment. Then her eyes lit up with a smile. She touched the cute hat on her head, raised her head, and looked at Kiki. She happily whispered, I like it. Nina's voice was so soft that only Kiki, who was in front of her, could hear it. However, Poplar Fruit, who was watching from the side, could feel that the wariness between Nina and Kiki had been lowered. Little sister, my name is Dejun. Let's be good friends, okay? Dejun, who was wearing a shiny yellow waterproof jacket and a pair of sunglasses, jumped out of the car and went straight to the new little sister. However, he didn't realize that his hairstyle and sunglasses made him look like a bandit leader who had jumped out of the mountains. Fortunately, Nina was holding her brother's hand with one hand and her sister Kiki, whom she had just met, in the other. She wasn't very afraid. Nuoi didn't think much of it. He liked Dejun's enthusiasm, so he let his sister hug him. Soon, every child greeted Nina, including Kong Kong, who was the first to get out of the car. However, the cold and aloof President Kong had never liked to hang out with a large group of people. Therefore, he held onto his luggage and rolled towards the village head with the help of the rollers. Papa, Nina is super pretty and super cute. Come, let me introduce her to you. Kiki was very happy to have made a new friend. She ran back and dragged Poplar Fruit to Nina's side. She happily introduced him. Nina, this is my papa. He's very awesome. Poplar Fruit squatted down with a smile. He looked at Nina, who was a little shy and fearful because she was an adult. The little beauty was different from her brother. Nuoi was more like his father, but Nina was more like her mother. She was like a foreign little beauty. Nuyi, does your sister speak Mandarin or French? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Mandarin. Kiki rushed to answer. Wasn't Nina speaking Mandarin just now? She can speak Mandarin and French. Nuyi waved his hand and said, But my French is not very good. Quelle_jolie_petite_fille. What a pretty little girl. Poplar Fruit suddenly said a string of very authentic French. Of course, among those present, only Kiki and Nina could understand it. Nuyi also understood it because Poplar Fruit spoke very slowly. Oh, Uncle Yang, Kiki, your father can speak French. Nuyi waved his little hand and said excitedly. My papa is super awesome. Chi-Chi raised her head proudly and added in her mind. That's right, I told you a long time ago. Seeing Nina suddenly staring at him, he was a little surprised. Yanghua smiled faintly and continued. Citizen_tut_diapels? What's your name? Okay, I won't use French from now on. I'll directly use the Chinese translation to replace the dialogue. My name is Nina. Nina looked at Poplar Fruit's handsome face, lowered her head shyly and said softly in French. She actually started to talk to Poplar Fruit. Perhaps, the fact that she spoke French made her feel that Poplar Fruit was quite close to her. Oh Nina, your name is very nice. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Suddenly his expression changed and he shouted. Wait, your ear is here. Poplar Fruit suddenly reached out his right hand and gently touched Nina's ear. Of course, he also touched her curly hair. But when he opened his right hand again, a coin suddenly appeared at Poplar Fruit's fingertips. That's right, Poplar Fruit was performing magic. At home, when he heard that Lu Yi wasn't coming, and that a little girl was coming, Poplar Fruit thought that he should learn a few magic tricks so that he could make the children happy during the recording of the show. For him, learning magic was a very simple matter because he had nimble hands and sensitive nerves. Ah! The children screamed, including Kiki. They were all shocked by Poplar Fruit's sudden magic trick, and then they were super happy. Children all like magic tricks, the mysterious and magical kind of performance. Nina also looked at the coin that Poplar Fruit placed in front of her with some surprise. She couldn't figure out how it appeared. From the looks of it, Uncle Yang seemed to have gotten it just by gently digging into his ear. Could it be that there was a coin hidden in her ear? Nina even touched her ear in confusion. This is a 1 yuan coin. Can you tell me what I can do with 1 yuan? Poplar Fruit asked in Mandarin with a smile. I know. 1 yuan can buy a candy. Dejun took the lead. It can buy a truck of candy. Xian, who was held by Dejun, didn't change her gluttonous nature and almost drooled. I also like to eat candy. Kiki also couldn't wait to join in the fun. Poplar Fruit expressed that he was defeated by these imaginative children. Alright, let's see what this 1 yuan can do. Poplar Fruit smiled and hid the 1 yuan coin in his palm, then clenched his hands into fists. The children's eyes were all fixed on Poplar Fruit's fists, especially Nina, who was silent. Her mouth was slightly open, looking forward to the wonderful scene that Uncle Yang would bring. Flower. There's a flower. Dejun shouted. Wasn't that right? A bright red rose, which was actually a prop made of cloth, grew little by little from Poplar Fruit's clenched fist. The children all clapped their hands excitedly. This is for our lovely little beauty Nina. Poplar Fruit smiled and handed the rose in his hand over. Nina accepted it gladly. She even showed the first bright smile that came from her heart since the show started. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.